All right, a very good morning, everybody, from the flight deck. Once again, welcome to the stream. It's Captain Nabs here with you for the beginning of Season 13 of A Pilot's Life. So it has been, it's been 12 complete seasons. It's been well over 100 episodes. I've lost count, but we're somewhere probably close to 120 episodes. It's been an average of about 10 episodes a season. Some of the early seasons were a little shorter. We squeezed them into 8 episodes, but we're definitely in that range. We're well over past 100 episodes, and you guys are still watching, so I'm still transmitting. It's a lot of fun. I do miss it when I don't do it. It is a lot of work, and that's why I tend to sort of want to take a break after each season for a couple of weeks to a month or two. So this actually kind of worked out well, taking a break through the summer, and of course, at the end of the summer, we were. Well, halfway through the summer, we were rewarded with this, what you see in front of you, which is, of course, the A321 from Fenix. So the A321 is now here, and I'm just going to move my mic a little closer there. Hopefully that level's good for everybody. Yeah, the Fenix A321 was released, the A319-321 package. I'm really a fan of the 321. I like the 319 in its own way, but it's got the handling of a shopping cart. It really is, it's not a pleasure to fly. It moves fast. If you want to get somewhere fast, it's a great airplane. But the real pleasure in flying comes in flying the 321. I think it's a big, heavy beast. It's the heavy experience in a narrow-body airplane. With tight margins, high speeds, just feels like operating a big airplane. And you wouldn't think that there's that much of a difference between the family. You think it's a family of airplanes. You think they're all pretty similar, but it can be very different. So, yeah. That's what we're up against here. We're going to have lots of time to chat because today's flight, if I can pull it up here, you can see at the top there anyways. I'm going to pull myself up here as well because then I can also pull up that screen. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. It's me, Captain Nabs, and today's flight, as you can see from the top, is going from New Orleans, where we're parked right now. New Orleans. No, it won't. Let me turn off auto follow for a second there. There we go. New Orleans all the way up to Boston Logan Airport. It's about a 3-hour flight in total. What are we looking at for airtime here? I've got my flight plan up here. Airtime, we're looking at, where is it? 249 in the air. Very, very light winds today. Not much of a tailwind on the way to Boston, so we got to get this flight underway before too long, so it doesn't take too long. But we're going to have lots of time in flight to talk about the 321 and everything else that's kind of transpired since the end of Season 12. So stick with me, guys. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. So before we even hop on the flight deck, I'm just going to have a quick look at the flight plan here. So there's one thing in the flight plan here. Here's my flight plan for JetBlue 400's today's flight from New Orleans to Boston. And the one thing that's in the flight plan today that's a little bit... oh, shoot, I didn't reload this. Standby 1, and let me just hit there. I actually created a second one because I created a first one and then I created a second one just to add a little bit of interest. So this should be released to somewhere, OFP2, there it is, because we have dispatch remarks MEL-3611-01 Alpha Bleed 2 in Ops. So just to throw things out there already at the start of the season and get things kind of moving with a little bit of interest, we are going to start with an MEL today. So there's almost always at least one MEL. Most of the time you step in an airplane, there's 3 or 4 or 5. Sometimes they're related, sometimes they're very minor things. Things like seats not reclining properly, or plugs or screens not working in the cabin. Most of the time, that's the kind of MELs we get. But you do get some interesting stuff as well. There's almost always something on an airplane that's MEL'd. So this is the MEL 3611-01 Alpha engine to bleed in op, and of course I was looking it up here. So as any diligent pilot would, so. The 3611-01 Alpha non-ETOPS flight, so we're not doing an ETOPS flight today, no flight level limitations, so we can meet all those restrictions. Repair interval C, which means 10 days to get the system fixed. Number installed 2, number required 1. So we got to have at least 1 engine bleed working. Placard, yes, 1 may be an operative provided that ETOPS is not conducted. We kind of already said that. The associated engine bleed push button is set to off. The cross bleed selector is set to open, and the speed brakes are operative, and then refer to the operations procedure as well, which will probably tell us during our pre-flight checks to make sure all the switches are in the correct position. So 3611-01 Alpha, let's just scroll through here really quick. 3611-01 Alpha. 1101 Alpha, engine bleed, air supply system, non-ETOPS flights. Flight preparation limitations. Flight crew should take into account the severity of forecast icy conditions. The wing anti-ice will be lost if the remaining engine bleed air supply system becomes inoperative. It's always a possibility, so we got to be careful of that. CQH company stipulate pressurization routes and high altitude relief airports are not implemented when the when the transport capacity can be allocated. After start. So after start, we've got to make sure that we turn the engine bleed off on the affected engine, that the cross bleed rotary selector is set to open, and if both packs are operative, if wing anti-ice is not required, we can have we select the pack selector to pack flow selector to low because of pre-cooler performance. So we'll have both packs working off of one bleed, so we can because they're both coming off the one bleed, we want to kind of keep the pressure off that bleed a little bit. So we'll set them both to low. If wing anti-ice is required, then we turn one of the packs off, so the affected side. So in this case, pack 2 would have to go off if we need wing anti-ice, so that we feed as much heat as possible to the wing anti-ice. And if one pack is inoperative, then we can go with pack flow selector high. So that's not the case today. For takeoff, set at least one air conditioning pack to off, or use the APU bleed air supply system. And if the APU has been used to supply air conditioning for the takeoff, after takeoff, APU bleeds off. Flight, again, if the wing anti-ice is required and both packs are operative, we have to turn off one of the packs, and the one on the affected side. In case of failure of the remaining bleed air supply system, or in the case of failure of the associated engine, apply the air engine 1+2 bleed fault ECAM procedure. So there will be an ECAM that comes up, we'll just apply that, and caution, reset engine bleed push button switch as requested by ECAM procedure, even if engine bleed switch push button switch is placarded operative as per MEL. So that's an interesting little note there, that little caution there. So if we do get a failure of the other engine bleed, for whatever reason, the other engine bleed stops working, we are going to get this fault come up. We're going to get the air engine 1 and 2 bleed fault. It's going to be a whole procedure. It's going to ask us to reset the engine bleed switches. And it says, even though we've MEL'd this switch, for whatever reason, and we don't know the reason. It could be that there was the valve was stuck. It could be that it was triggering overpressure or under pressure, so it wasn't working properly. The management computer wasn't working properly, perhaps, or something. Whatever reason, we've completely shut off this bleeds on this side. But if we get this fault where we lose the other bleed, we're allowed to try this bleed again, per this caution note, just to try and get it working, just in case. Because if you lose 2 bleeds in flight, then of course you're going to lose pressurization, and that becomes a pretty serious situation in an airplane. So we'd rather have. We'd rather try and use that malfunctioning bleed over have no bleed at all if the second bleed, if the other bleed that we have that's working right now packs it in for whatever reason. So that's an interesting one. That's an interesting little note there. You can turn this bleed back on per the ECAM even though it's MEL'd if you've lost both bleeds. Interesting. Very interesting. All right. So that was the bleed. That was the bleed MEL, which is basically what's going to affect us today. Otherwise, we can hop in the flight deck. We've kind of reviewed the flight plan now a little bit, so let's go ahead and hop in the flight deck and let's get this whole show on the road. So, hello, Hannah. Welcome to the flight deck. We are going to be doing a. Let's see here. What are we doing today? So we are going to be doing a FS2 crew flight. FS2 crew released a special version of their FS2 crew system and their animated flyby, their animated FO product for the Fenix A321. Pardon me, and the 319 project, but it's not in their normal updater. You have to go search the internet for it, find the special installers, and download those and update them. But it does seem to be working, so I've used it twice now. It seems to be working for the most part. There's usually a CB that's popped over here. No, maybe not today. There used to be one of these that was always popping every single time you sat down. It looks like that's been fixed. There have been a couple of updates to the Fenix release, so that's been fixed by the looks of it, so not a problem at all. So we're going to use Hannah. Let's start setting up.
Roger.
Reaches for her glasses. That's considered setting up. I love it. Sometimes I just love the little gimmicks. Alright, so we're going to start loading this airplane. She's going to start setting everything up. She's going to start the APU right now, which is not necessary, so I may kill the APU. Although, that being said, we are in New Orleans. It is pretty warm out there. Oh, it's already 30 degrees in the flight deck. Okay, you know what? You want to start the APU today? Be my guest. Alright, in the meantime, I'm going to start setting up some of this stuff for flight here. She's got the batteries on. I'm going to get the ADIRs going here. Lights. We got the parking brake. Let's see here. We got, what are we looking for here? She's doing the checks, which There you go. She's doing the engine. Just trying the APU. I'm just going to check the engine oil, make sure it's sufficient, make sure that the hydraulics are sufficient. And yeah, everything's in the green there. Also on the door page, the oxygen should be sufficient. There we go. She's going to fire up the APU and she's going to go out for a walk in a few minutes. In the meantime, we're going to get everything started in here. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't usually use this view very much because I almost always use my tablet for accessing the MCDU. But just so you guys can see what we're doing, I'm going to make sure I use my mouse for this as much as possible. So today we're going to start with the FMGC system. We have a performance factor today, which would normally be already programmed in the airplane, so I'm going to put it in there right now of +1, which is pretty low in the grand scheme of things. And what we really need is the initialization page. So we are today JetBlue 400. Going from KMSY to KBOS. KBOS. IRS initialization. Show me the flight plan again. All right. North 2959.6 by 9015.5 west. 2959.6 by 9015.5 west. Align on that reference point. Boom. IRSs are now aligning. We basically have to sit here and wait until anything else happens. There are a few things we can do. You don't need to initialize the ACAR system to get the ATIS. So let's go ahead and I'm assuming we have one for KMSY. Yes, we do. Digital ATIS is available. So information Alpha 1253 Zulu. That's almost expired now. 298.7. 10 miles, 15 half, 8,000. 2992. Right on the money. We'll adjust that in a second. GPS runway 29 approach, departing runway 29. Notice the air emissions taxiway. Sierra closed between Echo and 02. Sierra closed between Hotel and 20. Whiskey closed.
I'm out for the walk around.
220 closed. Runway 11. Surface lights out of service. 11 ILS out of service. ILS 29 out of service. ASD out of service. Wow, does anything work at this airport? Birds in the vicinity. Alright, so we got a lot of stuff doesn't work here, but we're going to be using 29 for departure. And actually, while I think about it, what I should be doing now too is opening the door so we can. She's out for the walk around. Yeah, so we said 2992 on the meter. We're basically just waiting for the IRSs to initialize before we do anything else. We can set a couple of switch positions just while we're waiting here, but we're not actually really doing anything yet. Alright, there's that, refuel. Alright, so IRL line's going to take 5 minutes. The other thing we can do while we're waiting here, because we're not going to use the ACAR system for this, is we can get some takeoff data. So we have two methods we can use now. We can use SimBrief or we can use the tablet. I'm going to tend towards the tablet, I think, just because it's easier to just directly import the speeds. So let's go here. First of all, this looks very dim. I turned this down last night, and as a result, it stayed down, which is weird. I never noticed that it stayed down before. Okay, so that's not what I want. I want takeoff data. So KMSY, we're going to do runway 29 for departure, dry runway, sync load sheets, flaps optimal, force token no, anti-ice off. We'll do packs off. So what I'll do is I'll do the packs on APU, 84.5, 23.9. I might just bump this up to 85 tons even. So give it a 500 kilogram margin so that we don't have to get new numbers if the weight goes up slightly. And then there were some closed taxiways. So let me just do this. I'm going to start doing this, I think, only because I find it's a little bit easier. The browser runs better than the in-sim browser. The in-sim browser grinds everything just to a halt. So I just want to see if there's an intersection. Sierra. Where was Sierra closed here on this ATIS? Alright, so on the ATIS, and it was in the note as well, Sierra closed between Echo and runway 02 and between Hotel and 20. So Sierra closed between Echo and 02 and Hotel and 20. So this part is open. So we can use Sierra from the full length, and that's what I wanted to know was, do we need intersection data? We do not. We just have full length, and that's fine. And it's going to run the calculation, and there it is. 54, 61, 62, flaps 2, 48-degree flex. All right, so we got 54, 61, 62. So these are definitely getting to be a little bit higher speeds than the 320. And you'll notice this in the 321. We are not fully loaded. We're at 85 tons. We still got another 8 tons we can load. When you start to get to a full 93 tons, you'll get like rotation speeds that are approaching 170 knots sometimes. And there is a max tire speed of 195 knots. So you want to be rotating by the 170 mark. You don't want to be leaving it till the end, because if you start to rotate at 180, by the time you actually get off the wheel, the ground, chances are the wheels will have exceeded 195 knots because you're still accelerating through the rotation process. All right, 2 more minutes till the alignment is done. In the meantime, we are fueling. That is pretty loud, but we are fueling. We do have somebody parked next to us as well, another 321 parked next to us here on VATSIM. Don't know who it is. They are just shown up as a blank wet lease livery, I guess. But this is the JetBlue Prism livery. So I will say something about the liveries here. I did have a bit of a trouble finding JetBlue liveries at first. Nobody wanted to make one, and I couldn't figure out the reason why. And the reason why, of course, is that JetBlue does not actually have the fence, the wingtip fence wingtips here. They have the sharklet wingtips. So nobody wanted to, in the beginning, none of the really good creators wanted to make the JetBlue livery, just because nobody wanted to, because it was not the right airplane. They're waiting for the sharklets version to come out before they what am I trying to say? Before they make JetBlue livery. So a couple of people went out and said, well, you know what? It's going to probably be a while before the sharklets come out. Let's make some fake liveries here. So this is not totally correct, only because, oops, sorry about that, guys. That's not supposed to happen. Yeah, it's only because this is not supposed to exist. The wingtip fence is not supposed to exist. It's supposed to be the sharklet wingtip. So we'll try to fly this properly by then, but I didn't want to wait until the sharklets come out, because that could be another 6 months or so, and I really want to just go and fly the 321 now. So let's hop in. That should probably be done there. Yeah, hopefully that wasn't too loud when you guys were outside. And actually, that reminds me of one more thing while I'm thinking about audio, and that is making sure that my VATSIM audio is routed to the correct device, which it is definitely not. That's the one. Okay. That should be the right device now, so you guys should hear any calls on Unicom. And one thing I can also do on here as well, while I'm thinking about it, is, of course, I could look on the chart as well. 19.5 is the CTAF frequency for Nolans, so we'll get 19.5 up, and that way we'll be able to switch it over once we're ready. Just trying to sort of be ahead of the game, do the things that need to get done while we're waiting for this IRS to align. Looks like they all came in. The IRSs are in. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to go to MCDU2 to do the ATSU stuff here. Not just to check out Hannah's knee or shoe, but to just do the ATSU stuff here. So flight init, initialize data request, give it 10 seconds to come back. There it is, JetBlue 400, New Orleans, Boston, alternate JFK, 2 hours and 49 minutes. And it's a great day here, but it's not so great out in Boston. It's kind of overcast and rainy right now, and hopefully it'll improve by the time we get there, but actually it's kind of fun to do these things when they're not great. The other thing we'll do now is get the secondary, and then we'll be ready to start with an overhead panel flow here. So if I didn't say it, our target takeoff time is quarter after the hour, so we got about 20 minutes to finish setting up here, so that should be just enough time. Secondary's in. New Orleans, Boston. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and activate that. It looks about right, and we're going to check it over again in a second here. Clear takeoff data. Check takeoff data. Alright, so start with an overhead flow. Just make sure we got basically the Airbus philosophy. The lights are all off. Nothing should be illuminated, except for a few things that are turned on manually, like the CVR test. So the CVR is now recording. Once you press that ground control button, the CVR is actually recording everything you do. Alright, this is good. We'll say it's first flight of the day, so I saw Hannah already check the APU, so we'll just check both the engine fire protections. Alright, hydraulics are good. Fuel, still refueling, so leave the pumps for now, including leave the mode select in auto. Batteries, let's go ahead and check the battery level here. So electric page, those are showing correctly now.
The security and safety check are all done. And
that's less than 60 amps within 10 seconds. Thank you. Go for it.
Okay.
Interesting. The one thing I've noticed is that this does not seem to be working here. So when I have the MSFS window in focus, the mute button doesn't seem to work. It only seems to work if I selected this. Interesting. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. Little tiny things I just noticed, but that's all right. Yeah, we just did the batteries. We can probably turn off external power now since the AP is running. We're going to turn this down because this is normally where you have an Airbus sit. You don't normally like it to get too warm. Engine tube bleed is off. And we'll get the cross bleed to open after start. Fueling's complete, so we can turn the seatbelts on. PA should always be out and at least 12 o'clock, if not louder. That way it can be heard on the CBR. Compass check. Making sure there's no flags. Let's see here. Fueling, seatbelts, no smoking, parking brake, TCAS, standby, company message, AP bleed. That's all normal messages for this time. For this phase of flight, so that's fine. Audio panel looks good. For the radar panel, everything's off. It looks good though. Switching's all normal. Pressurization is 0 for Boston. That looks good. Status Cat 2 and off is fine. And let's just check all the switches here are in the right spot. I'm gonna turn this off because Hannah doesn't actually need to talk on the radio because she's not real. And what I can actually do is put in here is the Auto-ATC message here, 2417. 2417. TARA. Alright, and quick instrument cross check. So we got one FT2. One FT2. Altimeter 2992 inches indicating 0 feet. 2992 inches indicating 0 feet. And headings 089, 089, yeah, 089. Yeah, 089. 089 and 089. Oh, here's a little bright there. It's almost hard to see. There it is. That's a little better. Alright, let's hop into the box for some quick programming here, and away we go. So, I think what I'll do is I'll just do this, so I can pull up the flight plan on this side of the screen when I need to. If I can find it here, what do I do with it? There it is. So that's pretty good there. Alright, anyways, we're going to start here on the aircraft status page. So we got an A321-200 with the V2533A5 engines. Database is current until the 2nd of October. The performance factor is +1. And we checked that in the flight plan and confirmed that we do have performance factor of fuel bias of +1. That's what they call it in this flight plan. Let's see here. Nothing to deselect, so nothing is deselected. Initialization, again, we're doing JetBlue 400. From New Orleans to Boston, alternate JFK, cost index, so I'm just going to have to keep pulling this thing up here, unfortunately. Cost index is 28, and flight level 330, so 28,330. Let's see an ICE deviation, +10, so wow. So we'll say it's -30 up at 330. Alright, departing New Orleans, departure runway is 29. And there's no SID, so it's just runway heading. We'll pick an altitude here once we get into the briefing phase. Insert that for now. Boston, let's see, what are they planning in the flight plan here? So the flight plan suggests we're going to do runway 9. That seems highly unlikely. Maybe I'll put 4 right in there. ILS 4 right. I should have looked at the star while I was... Norwich 7 through JFK, which is Alright, I'll do North 7 through JFK for now. I feel like I'm going to switch to an RNAV arrival. We'll look at that when we get en route. So we got ILS-4 right through Goshi. The North 7 arrival through JFK. So that's all inserted. Do we have any steps? We have no steps. 33 the whole way. And let's see here. No steps, no lat long or other user-defined waypoints. Total distance, ground distance of 1226. 1218. It's a pretty reasonable with the margin of error with some vector legs perhaps. So let's just store that and see if it's going to work for me today, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and I can't seem to figure out the rhyme or reason of why storing this flight plan works in this system or not. It worked today though, there you go. Alright, so let's see if that matches the flight plan here. We won't consider the SID, but we do have direct Catlin, Quebec 22 to Robbinsville, Quebec 419 to Lauren. Should be to JFK, so I bet JFK will be the next fix after Lawrence. So let's just go back to the flight plan page. Let's go to the airport page and just go up from there. So JFK, and right before JFK is Lawrence. So yeah, so that is all correct in there. RadNav auto-tune is fine for this departure. Secondary, the ILS will come up even though it's offline because the sim doesn't know that. Secondary, I'll recopy it, and then we'll put an immediate return back onto runway 29 via the GPS. So right after the discon here, we'll put an immediate return, and if something happens on departure that is scary, frightening, and otherwise needs us to come back, all we have to do is activate the secondary. We're already set up here, but we've got to do the GPS RNAV to runway 29. RNAV Yankee runway 29. No stars. HRVV is fine. We'll just intercept it where we can. Alright, so the secondary is now from New Orleans 29 to New Orleans 29, but the primary is still New Orleans 29 to Boston 4, right? So that's all good. Initialization, taxi fuel of 0.2, route reserve of 0, alternate. Let's see here. Alternate is 2.2, and final is 1.3. So 2.2 to go to JFK. And 1.3 for the final. ZFW. And actually I should be able to just jump over and do this now. So go back to the AOC menu, receive messages. And it looks like we got a final load sheet. So they're done loading even though we're still setting up. So I'm just going to accept the preliminary load sheet, but we'll skip right to the final load sheet here. 69.8. 69.8 by 25.8. 69.8 by 25.8. And the block fuel, should just look up for this really. Looks like 14.9. So go ahead and go 14.9. That gives us a takeoff weight of 84.5, and on here we did 85. So we are right on target. So we're well within the 2-ton window we're allowed. Trip wind. Average wind component 0, literally 0. So 7.6 tons, 2 hours and 51 minutes. I've never seen that before, but 7.6 tons, and it's right here on page 1, what I'm thinking here. 2 hours 51. Now I find that there's a big discrepancy here between SimBrief and the airplane. Big discrepancy in the 321. The 320 was nearly bang on. The numbers matched. And for some reason, there's a big discrepancy between SimBrief and the 321. So I'm going to take that for granted. It's planning us at almost 9 tons. This is planning us at 7.6, which means the extra is going to be way off as well. So we should have, we got 50 minutes for weather, 50 minutes for ATC. We got contingency of 500. So that's 8 and 8 16. That's about 2,000. But we're off by 1.3, so 3.3. Now we're into the right ballpark here again. And I find there's some math that goes weird in this. The 320 was perfect. This is one thing that, for some reason, in the 321 is a little bit funky. It doesn't quite add up. So we're just going to leave that as it is, and we'll grab the wins. Yeah, it's a good double check. And in the real airplane, it's a very valid check, and it's usually within. You could usually get it within 200 or 300 kilos very easily. And you can find your errors, you know, you can say the distance is a little bit less or not. Next phase, blue, blue, blue. But yeah, if for some reason in Phoenix's 321, it's way out. I don't know why. Alright, we can now go over to this here, send it to the MCDU. And if we go to the perf page, it should all be there now. So runway 29, no takeoff shift, flaps 2 up 1.2, flex 48. Let's just check that. 2 up 1.2, 48, 54, 61, 62, 54, 61, 62, standard transition 18,000, and 1500, 1500, 1000 across the bottom. 237 is the green dot speed. We'll pre-select that for the climb. Prog page says we're good. Our max is at 332 right now. Our cruise at 33, so that's a really tight margin. But this is a 321 that's pretty heavily loaded at 85 tons. It's going to take forever to get to 33. It's going to take us 200 miles to get to 33. So I'm not too worried about that level yet. We'll look at it as we get a little closer to cruise.
Guys,
GPS primary now
here's the
accuracy is
load
high.
sheet for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a safe flight.
And finally, the IRSs are all in nav at 0.3s and 0.2, so that's all very reasonable. All right, clearance. So we didn't get a clearance. All we got was this. Does not appear to be a controller. Please squawk 2417 for your flight from New Orleans to Boston. 2417, and that's what I've got in the box. All right, perfect. So fuel is 14.9 tons. Let's just check that against the flight plan here. We do say 14.9 tons. So fuel is boarded, balanced, recorded. Pumps need to come on, and actually I should not turn the seatbelt sign on. That was an error. I should have left that off until we were done fueling. All right, so all the pumps, transfer valves, everything's open, perfect. Load is, we've got the final numbers in there already, and the logbook will say is checked. There's no open snags. We're doing the ramp checks, and service checks are all complete. All right, so quick little departure review, which there's nothing to really review because there's no SID here, so it's just runway heading of 287 by the looks of it until 1,500 feet for the acceleration. And what we'll do is we'll set an initial climb altitude of 3,000 feet. Roger, 3,000. All right, that's all I've got right now. If I had ATC online, I'd get a clearance from them. But there's nobody on here yet, so that's fine. I'm not expecting ATC this time in the morning anyways. It's just normal. Okay, so no MELs on the aircraft. We do have the one MEL for the bleed. Bleed 2 is selected off right now, and we'll have to make sure that once the start procedure is completed, the cross bleed is opened. NOTAMs for departure. I didn't have a close look at the NOTAMs. We saw there are some closed taxiways. Let's just have a really quick look just to make sure there's nothing that impacts us too much. Whiskey Sierra, yeah, we saw all that in the ATIS there. We know the 2 and 20 is closed, and we know that if we come back around the 29, the ILS is offline, so it'll just be a GPS only, probably with higher minimums, I bet, because of all this construction going on in 02. ILS are low from 29, I'm just trying to see if there's anything here. It's a pretty VMC day anyway, so I'm not too worried about the minimums coming back in here, and that looks like it, so nothing's affecting our departure at all. So departure today is there is no departure today. It's just there is no SID in New Orleans, so it's just going to be runway heading or is otherwise assigned if ATC comes online. Right now top altitude of 3,000 feet. Noise abatement in New Orleans, I'm going to assume that nothing is ever published in the US for noise abatement. It might be published on 10.9 Alpha if there is. There's nothing in here about noise abatement. And engine failure. It's generally pretty flat terrain. We'll just continue straight ahead, runway heading to up to 3,000 feet. MSA is 2,100 feet around the airport here. Actually, that's around the Harv VOR. So, yeah, we'll use 3,000 feet. It'll keep us safe. Yeah, performance in the box today for the... There we go. Left seat departure off runway 29, dry runway, no takeoff shift, flaps 2, flex of 48, V1 154, VR 161, V2 162, strand transition 18,000, 1,500 for thrust reduction acceleration, engine out at 1,000. 237, the green dot speed pre-selected for the climb. It's a managed departure. We've got climb blue, nav blue. We'll get the autopilot on shortly after departure since I'm the only one really in the flight deck doing any flying. And yeah, RadNav is auto-tuned. That's all we need. Threats for the day. It is an uncontrolled airport right now, so as long as ATC doesn't come online, we got to have the CTAF up. So I'm going to put the CTAF up now so I can start listening to anything that might be going on. Make sure we make the appropriate calls on the CTAF for the departure and look for traffic because there could be Nordo traffic. Let's see here. flap 2 is a bit of a threat just because it's a little non-standard. Most of the time we do flaps 1, especially at 321, but if it's a shorter runway, we might do flaps 2. So, yeah, we'll do flaps 2. We'll make sure we select that. It is in the system, so when we do the double check, it's there. Engine bleed 2 is off. We just got to remember to open up the cross bleed valve once we start the aircraft. I think that's really all the threats I can think of today. Yeah, we're pretty much ready to go. So we won't do anything legend taxi out. It's a pretty short taxi. What we'll do, actually, it is a bit of a short taxi. What we'll do is we'll do half the before takeoff checklist before we even start taxiing, just to get all done, because it is a very short taxi out here. We are parked here at gate Charlie 3, and we just got a taxi over here. So it's a very short taxi. So that's an additional threat. And yeah, OEB 646, you will, so in the event of an abnormality prior to V1, I will call continue rejected. The decision is to reject, will immediately select thrust levers idle, observe, apply maximum brake, and apply maximum first thrust. I'll maintain max first and max brake until stopped. Short forward, I'll thrust at the park brake required, call ECAM actions. I will accomplish ECAM actions. We will assess the situation. If an evacuation not required, I'll make a PA remain seated. If contact with the in-charge flight attendant is required, I'll make a PA in-charge flight attendant call report to flight deck, and if an evacuation is required, I'll call stop ECAM, or stop ECAM checklist patch evacuation. I'll read the appropriate checklist. In the event of an engine fire failure after V1, I'll continue to take off, rotate normally if VR to 12.5 degrees when airborne follow SOS commands. I'll call engine fire, power loss, cancel the audio warning when established, definite climb. I'll call positive rate. I'll call gear up. I'll select gear up. Above 100 feet, I'll trim the aircraft, engage the autopilot. Above 400 feet, I will select heading, push or pull is required, and call ECAM actions. I will accomplish ECAM actions advised engine secured. I'll call stop ECAM at or above engine at acceleration altitude. I will accelerate and level flight, call for lap traction on schedule. When the speed trend arrow reaches the green dot speed, I'll select altitude pull, max continuous thrust, and call continue ECAM. I'll disarm the spoilers, continue ECAM. In the event of rapid pressurization, I will assume control with the autopilot on, call rapid pressurization or emergency descent. Don my mask, call captain oxygen. Don mask, call first officer on oxygen. I'll select signs on and make a PA attention flight 10, secure the cabin passengers, take your seats. I will initiate the descent. Confirm the announce the FMA. If the auto thrust not active, select thrust levers idle and extend the speed brakes to full. I will confirm the FMA and ensure you've established the aircraft correctly in descent. I will set the max appropriate airspeed for the situation and notify ATC. I'll set the engine mode to ignition, set the transponder 7700, and I'll call ECAM actions. I'll accomplish ECAM actions. I'll accomplish ECAM actions silently, and if the cabin altitude exceeds 40,000 feet, I'll press hold the mask manual push button for at least 2 seconds. Make PA attention, put on your oxygen masks immediately. And with that, if we get if we do get that, we can level off 10,000 anywhere along our route today. We're not going over any mountainous terrain. So 2,000 feet to level off, we will reduce speed to 250, retract speed brakes at 10,000 feet. We will level off, remove our oxygen mask one at a time, and contact the cabin. All right, that's it. That's the whole spiel. I think we're ready to go. We're just a minute or so behind, but we're doing pretty good. All right, so let me do a couple things to trigger Hannah. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Go ahead.
Any questions?
No questions.
And I've noticed this, just to bring this over here again, that the speeds are now moving in here correctly. So some of the stuff is cross-talking nicely. This is not. The takeoff config is not cross-talking properly. Takeoff runway, they could grab that, but it does know reduced thrust. It does know the speeds. I know the speeds are being copied over properly, so interesting. I don't know where that's coming from, but it looks like some of the information is making its way out of the Fenix and into FS2 crew without having to manually fill the whole thing, which is great. All right, cockpit preparation checklist.
Ear pins and covers.
Removed. Removed. Removed.
Fuel quantity.
Hey guys,
14,800 kilograms.
Are we clear to close?
Seatbelt.
On.
Adheres.
Nav.
Barrel ref.
2992 inches. 2992 inches set.
2992 set. Cockpit preparation checklist completed.
Yes.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything.
Before start checklist.
Parking brake.
Set. Set.
Takeoff speeds and thrust.
V1 154, VR 161, V2 162, flexing 48 degrees.
V1 154, VR 161, V2 162, flex temp 48 degrees. Windows.
closed.
Beacon.
On.
Before start checklist completed.
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
Alright, just waiting to see this menu pop up here. Just waiting to see Buddy hook up the tow bar, and away we go. Alright, Season 13 about to get underway. Let me just check this as well. Yes, it does know where we are. Yeah, server connection okay, flight sim connected, stage pre-flight. So it does know where we are, it does know what we're doing. It has figured it out, which is good, good, good. I was a little bit, these are the kind of things that you forget after you haven't streamed for 3 months. Anytime now. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, so let's just align this a little better here. I wasn't sure. I think last time I did a push to this airport with GSX, I think it pushed me into the building. And as it is, like, we're a big plane, so we should probably go about there. I think that should be good enough.
Release parking brakes, please.
Alright, communications okay, brakes are set, and first flight of the day. So first thing I gotta do is release the parking brake and then tap the brake pedals. We should watch the yellow brake pressure on the triple indicator come up again. So parking brakes off, press the brake pedals again, and you should see them come up. That indicates the yellow system is working properly as well. Alright, you're okay for pushback, delaying and start till advised. And here we go. Alright. Now it should be the FO starting the engine, but anyways, she doesn't do it, so. Starting engine 2.
Okay.
Alright, make sure we got some values up there. Good. And engine master 2 to run. It's so unnerving to see that N1 indicator doesn't show anything until it reaches a certain minimum value. It looks like it's malfunctioning, but it'll come up in a second here. We need to get to 25%, and then we're going to get ignition and fuel at the same time. Here comes 25%. There's ignition, there's fuel flow, and you'll get N1 momentarily here. We do have oil pressure building as well. The important thing there comes N1 at about 4.5%. It kicks in. Just cranking that nose wheel around, huh, buddy? Do what you gotta do, I guess.
Please set parking brakes.
Should make sure we're not moving. Brakes are set, confirm the pins are moved. Alright, we've got a solid start on engine 2. Starting engine 1.
Okay.
Unlocking gear.
Air bleed 2 off. That's an expected ECAM.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed. Left is clear. Right is clear.
Alright, thank you. You can revert to hand signals. Have a great day. Yeah, I do find these IE engines, they're a lot slower to start than CFMs. The CFMs are just Throw the switch over and 20 seconds later it's going. All right, I see the pin. Thank you very much. Have a good day. All right, and it looks like we got engines 2 and 1 are normal. And since the start is now complete, you can go ahead and open up the cross bleed. And so the bleed 2 is off per the MEL. Clear bleed 2. All right, clear air is cleared, and status, we can remove status. It's just engine bleed 2 is in op, and that's per the MEL, so that's to be expected. All right, and then now I'm gonna muddle my way through Fenix here because it's not what I'm used to here. After start checklist.
Anti-ice.
Off.
ECAM status.
Checked.
Pitch trim.
%1.2% set.
Rudder trim.
Neutral.
After start checklist completed.
Flight control check.
Ready. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
She still didn't set the flaps right either. Taxi checklist.
Ready. Flight controls.
Checked.
Checked. Flap setting.
Config 2.
Config 2. Radar and predictive wind shear system.
On. On and auto.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
ECAM memo.
Takeoff, no blue.
Taxi checklist completed.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen,
Clear left side.
welcome on board our flight today.
Clear right side.
This is the lead flight attendant
All right.
speaking.
Here we
Please
go.
direct your attention to
Parking
the
brakes
cabin
coming
for
off.
important safety information. There is an instruction card in your seat pocket that illustrates the safety equipment on this aircraft.
New Orleans traffic. JetBlue 400 is at the terminal. We're taxiing for departure runway 29 via Sierra.
Lighted information signs and posters. Placards fasten your seatbelt by inserting the metal tip into the buckle. Tighten by pulling on the belt to release your seatbelt.
Brake check.
Lift a metal flap on the buckle.
Pressure
It is our
0.
policy that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times while seated. Doors are clearly marked with exit.
All right, and we're off, ladies and gentlemen. Season 2 is underway.
With an escape slide.
She takes a little bit of power to get moving. She's not fully loaded, but she's still pretty heavy.
The nearest exit may be behind you. In an emergency, lights will illuminate the aisle. The cabin is pressurized. If there is a loss of cabin
But she's also a heavy and long beast, so you got to plan your turns in advance. Come on. Wait, what? What's doing? What's it doing here? Oh, hold on a second. We just did this.
Flowing to the mask, even though the bag may not inflate. Cover your nose and mouth with the mask.
Why is it not turning?
Band around your head and tighten by pulling on the end.
I looked away for a second.
Secure your own mask before assisting others. Your seat bottom cushion may be used as a
Hooray, we're in the grass already. Okay.
Pull up and remove the cushion.
That is weird. I was trying to crank my tiller around and it was not doing anything. It's working now. But from the exterior view, it did nothing. I think we managed to keep the wheel from going in the grass. We got it on the kept it on the pavement, sort of. Okay, why did you turn the wipers on, honestly? That's what I get for doing an external view. And I usually don't do that very much. I was trying to enjoy it a little bit on the stream here, but I really don't do much time outside the flight deck because I tend to keep it fairly realistic. You don't see the airplane much from the outside once you get going. Now that was goofy. That's what you get for looking away for even a second. I was using the tiller, but it's weird. It didn't want to work. And I've had this glitch happen once in the Fenix now, where all the axes, all the flight control, or all your joystick controller axes stop working. That's been a bit of a problem in the Fenix. Or not in the Fenix, in the PMDG 37. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I've had it definitely happen probably 3 or 4 times where Flight Deck Rob speaking.
The cabin is now secure for takeoff.
Thank you. All right. What was I saying? Yeah, I've had it a few times where the PMDG has, everything's normal. You do a start. Most of the time, it seems to happen in the push. It seems to happen in the taxi out. But you do the whole thing. Everything's kind of normal. You start taxi, and then at some point during the taxi, all of a sudden, all the controller inputs stop working. And so you can't slow the airplane down because your brakes stop working, because the rudder control stopped working, the rudder pedal stopped working. You can't turn the airplane because your tiller stops working, and there's nothing you can do to reset it. That's the really frustrating thing, is for whatever reason, it becomes completely disconnected. I don't know if it's actually PMDG, but I think it might actually be a glitch in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because I had Fenix do it once now, and I thought that's what was happening there a second time, and I was going to be really pissed off because that was going to be the end of my stream. I wasn't going to restart again, because the only thing you can do is restart the sim. There is no way to mitigate it. It's kind of lousy taxing here. There's no way to mitigate it. All you can do is restart the sim. So it's very frustrating. I've had it happen now once in the Fenix, so I don't think it's a PMDG issue. I think it's something to do with the advanced airplanes in this simulator, but it's a simulator issue as much as anything else. So. Alright, she's a long beast. You got to think about the fact that she's a long beast behind you. So go well into the turns. You don't have to go deep. You don't have to usually oversteer unless it's a really narrow taxiway, but you do have to keep the wheel pegged on the center line, or if anything, be a little bit late making the turns. Alright, we are ready to go here. Just double check that we are on the CTAP yet. New Orleans traffic at JetBlue 400. Take position runway 29 for departure. Alright, so runway 29, clear on the left. Clear left. Clear on the left. Lineup procedure. Runway entry procedure.
Takeoff runway confirmed. Approach path clear of traffic. Cabin crew be seated for takeoff.
It's a pretty good lineup, in all honesty. It's one of the better lineups I've done. Lineup checklist.
Takeoff runway.
29 confirmed.
Checked. TCAS.
TARA.
Packs 1 and 2.
Off.
Lineup checklist completed.
Almost forgot that part. Manflex 48, SRS runway, auto thrust blue.
Checked. Thrust set. knots.
Checked.
B1. Rotate. Positive climb.
Nav. Gear up.
Gear up.
Open climb. Heading. Thrust climb. Auto thrust. Flaps 1.
Speed check. Flaps 1. 1,000 to go.
Flight level 330 set. And now you're starting to see the heavy aircraft nature of the 321, as it takes us about 2 minutes to accelerate to clean speed after we level off here, at least 90 seconds after we level off here before we finish accelerating to clean speed. There's Airbleed 2. Stand by. And our climb rate deteriorates to almost nothing. 500 feet per minute as we try to accelerate. There it is. Flap 0.
Speed check. Flap 0.
Now it's going to start to pitch up at the clean speed. But look at this. Like, the clean speed here is 236. Like, that's pretty fast. The 320, it's often in the 220 range, something like that. But this is actually pretty fast. So I'm just waiting for 3,000 feet here. Once we hit 3,000, we'll go direct our first waypoint, which is Catlin. Insert that. I did set flight level 330. I wasn't talking much, mostly because I wanted Hannah to continue listening, and the mute button only seems to work when this window is inactive. Now that might be because of how I ran it too. What I found is that running it through the MSFS menu here doesn't work. At least it didn't the one or two times I tried it with this updated 319/321 version. That didn't seem to work. Didn't seem to run properly. So I ran this outside of MSFS, and maybe that's why it doesn't. I can't. The mute button won't work through MSFS because the executable wasn't run by MSFS. So maybe that's why it's not inherited or whatever. All right. So I did turn off the APU. It is shutting down. And all right. ECAM actions. Air. Bleed 2 off. Bleed 2 is off. We got the cross bleed open. It's feeding both packs. Clear air. Clear air. And status. Let's see here. Status. One pack only if wing anti-ice on. Engine 2 bleed isn't off. Remove status. Remove status. ECAM actions are complete. That was for the known MEL, so it's not a problem. All right, we are turned on course. And watch this. I'm going to manage the speed now. And look at how far it's going to jump to go from green dot to the maximum speed. 15, 14 knots here. Not much of a jump at all. Just a quick temperature check. We got a TATA plus 25, so we don't need the anti-ice just yet. But that is kind of a typical 321 operation now. I don't know if you guys really kind of were paying attention to that, but that was what I kind of that's what makes me believe it's a 321 is the way it eats up that runway first of all to get to 160 knots. That 100 knots comes pretty quickly, and then after that, and I was getting a little not nervous, but I could see the end of the runway coming, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, we got to get going here. And then she said V1, and she didn't even say rotate for another couple seconds, and I started to pull back almost instinctively without even realizing. I kind of realized it as I did it. I'm like, it kind of got me there. Because very often you get the V1 and the rotate at almost the same speed, but regardless, like, you saw how much runway this thing chewed up there. That runway in New Orleans, how long is that runway in New Orleans? Let's pull it up here. It is 10,000 feet long, and we rotated at like Alpha, Gulf 3 Alpha. So we used like probably 8,000 to 9,000 feet of this 10,000 foot runway to get this 321 airport. Now, yes, there is flexing there, so that it's obviously seeking the optimum temperature, but even in the 320, you never get quite that close to the end before you've reached flying speed, even with a high flex in most cases, certainly on a 10,000 foot runway. But in the 321, 10,000 feet goes by pretty quickly. And you saw that as well in the acceleration phase. When we reached acceleration altitude, brought the power back, we weren't even at F speed yet. We had to accelerate to get to F speed to get to flaps 1, and then it took about another 60 to 90 seconds of climbing at less than 500 feet per minute to get to the S speed and be able to retract the flaps all the way to clean. So she's a big heavy beast. Airbus did not build this airplane for efficiency. Did not build it for power. It built it for efficiency. So as long as you get off the ground safely and you get the minimum legal climb rate, that's all that Airbus cares about. So that's what happens with the 321 is you do not get airborne quickly. Here comes 10,000. seatbelts off. Yeah, so there's 10,000. She's doing her thing. I'm going to do mine here. Airport. Nothing to detune on the rad nav, but secondary, we can recopy that now that we're underway. So it's got the current flight plan in there. Prog page now says we're going up to 336 for our cruise of 33. So we've already built in a bit of margin just in the departure process and the fuel we burned off at this point. By the time we actually get up to 330, we'll probably have a margin of at least 1,000 feet on the max. All right, guard is up on number 2. I'll turn the radio on. And I never did do another call after we rolled. Didn't seem like anybody was on frequency anyways. That was my bad. I'm kind of, bad habits today. What is going on with me today? All right, Delta P is 3.4. It's climbing normally. That's fine. And fuel, we burned just over 1,000. So we got 13.8 in the tanks now. We started with 14.9-ish. So that's pretty reasonable. It's definitely within a rounding error at this point. So there we go. NB Silence, good morning and welcome to the stream. I hope the audio balance is okay. Here it sounds really loud in my ears, but I think it's actually not as bad for you guys as it is for me. I think I've just got it cranked pretty high in my ears, so I might even turn it down just a little bit so it doesn't sound super loud to me. All right, anywho. But yeah, here we are. We're underway. We're going from New Orleans to Boston, and let's see the damage here. All right, so right now we're showing 1727, 1,196 miles to go. So we are 1727. That's going to be pretty much put us in there for an on-time arrival. We have to be at the gate in Boston. I believe it's 3 hours 20. So we have to be at the gate by 1735. So 1727 touchdown in Boston would put us just right. So I think that's going to work out nicely. There we go. We've reached our 350 knot climb speed here. So now it's starting to pitch up and climb a little bit again. But this is the beast. I love the 321 because she's a hauler. Like you put 196 people back there. If you got the ACTs, you can put 20 plus tons of fuel in the airplane. 93 ton gross takeoff weight, but the margins are crazy, and that's the fun part. I think the challenging part. Silva Jonathan 777. Good morning and welcome to the stream. This is kind of what I like about flying the 321 is it's a heavy narrow body, if you will. You've got to fly it like a heavy. You've got to be thinking ahead in terms of deceleration. When we get to the other end, you've got to be thinking ahead in terms of deceleration points, in terms of making sure you have enough time to bleed off speed and get your flaps out and everything. On the takeoff, the margins can be very small. If you do like a gross weight takeoff in this thing, and I've done it a few times, you get up to 93 ton takeoff weight. The speed margin is ridiculous. I've had clean speed, minimum green dot speed, minimum clean speed of 247 on one departure once. So a 3 knot margin between the clean speed and the maximum speed below 250. So, at that point you're almost playing the game of, our minimum clean speed doesn't let us stay at 250. Like you could probably violate the 250 rule with a little bit of justification given how fast your clean speed is. If there's any turbulence or anything, you may want to go a little bit faster. You could it's not really a violation because the rule does say the maximum speed below 10,000 feet is 250 knots or your minimum clean speed, whichever is greater. So if you need a little bit of margin on there, you're basically doing that. But that's the kind of margins you're getting into in a 777 or 47 or something that's fully loaded. Is you're talking 3 to 5 knots from minimum to maximum speed below 10,000. The rotation speed, everything, it's a heavy beast. You got to almost fly it like a heavy. It's long too for a narrow body. It's 146 feet long. The wheelbase, I don't know what the wheelbase is offhand. I don't even know. I think it's like 48 feet or something like. No, it must be more than 48 feet. It must be 320. But yeah, you've got to really. That was actually, and I will say, I will kind of pat my own back there that was probably one of the best lineups I think I've done for the 321 in the simulator so far. Really kind of nicely rolled out, turned it, cranked the wheel around, and just ended up with it lined up perfectly on the center line. Most of the time I'm a little bit off. It's taken some getting used to. It really is. If you're used to the 320, you don't have to worry about the legs so much. You can just sort of taxi it around, turn it along the yellow line, and it's going to get there. But with the extra length of the 321, it really kind of trailers. It really, the main wheels really kind of cut the inside of the corner, so you really have to make the turns late or even oversteer to get onto a runway if you want to line up with the center line right at the threshold. So I was pretty proud with that one. I didn't do everything perfectly, and I never claim I will. I And I'm kicking myself now that I kind of pulled back and rotated before we reached rotate, before she called rotate. And it's one of the things, too, is that I'm actually not used to flying with FS2 crew again. All summer long, I've been not flying with FS2 crew, because the trouble with FS2 crew is that FS2 crew does not, they follow the standard Airbus SOPs, but at work, I don't normally follow the standard Airbus SOPs because we have our own set of SOPs that are somewhat different. So I'm trying to kind of mash them together now again, which makes it a little bit awkward, but as a result, like flying flight sim, I'm very much not used to listening for somebody to say it. And so it really kind of almost tossed, it threw me off a little bit what she said. It was great. It's good. It's good to say, if someone say V1 rotate, but I'm used to kind of looking down there and doing my own V1 rotate call. There is transition. I don't think it's going to change anything.
Passing flight level 183. Now.
Checked. Silva Jonatha 777 wants to have my opinion on something I'm creating at the moment. I'm all ears. I'm always looking for good stuff to talk about. I'm coming into this a little bit blind in terms of things to talk about. We've got 3-hour flight, and normally I try and do like a little bit of research ahead of time and kind of pick a few topics I'd like to talk about, maybe watch some videos, make some things I want to comment on. And today I've been a bit lazy. And it's not that I've been lazy. That's not the right word. It's that I just don't have the time. Like I booted up yesterday just to make sure that the JetBlue livery looked okay, that there were no pink spots on it, and it does seem to look okay. Make sure that my New Orleans scenery was installed properly, and that was about it. Then I then I just walked away because I had other stuff to do. I've been since like I think the beginning of August, I have just felt like I have not had any time off. All right, so Silva Jonatha 777 says, I'm developing a live flights map for VATSIM using previous experience on the virtual airline. I'm reaching out to some streamers to have some eyeballs on it. So he says, track my flight right now on it. So let's do it. Absolutely. That sounds like a good plan. There it is. So there's VatEye. Was this the one I was looking at in the other stream? No, I don't think. There was another one I was looking at in a live stream because, yeah, SimAware kind of died. So there was another one I was looking at in a live stream just a little while ago, and I can't remember what it was as well. Bugs me. I shouldn't go look for it now because I don't want to. Now that you've asked me to do this and have a look at it, absolutely. So let's have a look at it. It gives us something great to talk about here. So this is us, JetBlue 400. Oh, that's cute. The tail turns a little bit when you run yourself over it. But so that is us right there. You can see the purple line coming in there. This must be the first fix on the flight plan. So I'm guessing the VATSIM radar. I think that was, yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to. I'm not going to try and VATSIM-radar.com. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was what I looked at last time. So let's look at this one though. Flight tracking, route waypoints. So we got route waypoints in there. So it does have our route in there. You can see it's actually got the route highlighted with the kinks and everything. It would be kind of nice if you could also turn on the waypoints as well. Or do I just need to be zoomed in more? No, I don't think I'm up ever. Pre-alpha anyway, so. Yeah, and I do kind of like that. I do kind of like the projected flight plan. That's kind of neat. So a lot of the other ones have just been kind of like straight lines. Airline colors and tail icons for mapped airlines. So what do you mean airline colors? Like each of these airplanes is a different color for its given airline? Or I'm just curious what the color mapping is here of the various labels. What does labels do? Labels gives us place labels. Oh, that's okay. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather have the fixed and airway labels, all things considered. But you know, I'm not trying to be critical because like I realize it. You know, this is stuff that's beyond my ability anyways, but I do like the fact you can overlay the weather radar on there. Let's see what dark mode looks like too. Dark mode is actually really slick too. Oh, I like that. That's nice too. That'll definitely be nice at night. I guess the airplanes go only one color if you're in dark mode though. So what do the different colors mean there? Because there's a southwest, there's a delta, there's a southwest. Are the different colors different airlines? because I do see myself as purple. When it's not mapped, it has the plane icon on purple, but when we have that on the database, we paint the plane marker with the airline color palette. Oh, okay. So you're going to eventually have this, because it's just a purple icon right now, but that would be neat if you could see the different airlines. It'd be really neat if you could even filter them out so you could just see just the airplanes from different airlines. That'd be kind of neat. Most popular airline, Lufthansa, 6.74. Most popular plane, the 737's back over the 320 again, 16.22. Now, if you were to compare the 737 family versus the 320 family, I wonder how that would look. I haven't set the JetBlue color yet, haha, but we got the logo for it. Yeah, and I see that there. You got the logo there. 4% of the way there. What else can we do here? Oh, so that zooms in on us. So if I'm somewhere else around the world, that focuses in on me. I don't know what the head icon does. Can't figure it out, but that's okay. Timeline. What does timeline do? Does timeline do anything here? Full throttle origin. All right, launching on Patreon. There you go. Yeah, and that's this. All systems are operational. Route waypoints under development. Okay, so yeah, and I didn't see that there. So that'll be really kind of nice to see. Would be to see the individual waypoints so that you can make your flight plan on the screen on your nav display or whatever correlate to what you see here. So now I'm gone. I'm going to pick somebody else at random. The Southwest flight from Atlanta to Cleveland. But there's his route. Ah, there it goes. Now it's drawn his route correctly. Flight tracking, route waypoints. There you go. I've got to say, it looks slick. It looks very, it looks slick. Maybe, and maybe as a suggestion, maybe you could do the route like a different color, or maybe like a different style of dashes when it's just loading the direct route while it's loading the actual waypoints until it flips over to the actual waypoint, so that you kind of see it's loading and but you know it's different. Just a thought, anyways. But yeah, the information you need is up there. 1195 pilots online. Let's have a look at controllers. So we do have ground in Providence, ground in JFK. There's not many controllers in North America, so let's go look at the other side of the pond here. I don't see. Do you have? I see the towers, the grounds. I see kind of all the local controllers, but I don't see. Oh, there's a radar, I guess. Oh, the controllers are still looking ugly. He says, don't look at it. Turn it off. Turn it off. It'll take some time to get used to it, I imagine, and try and find something. It's always tough to kind of see things in development. I see now the color, like as I kind of scroll over here more, I see the color mix a little bit better. It's always tough to kind of look at things in development, but I do appreciate the preview, and it does look good right now. Yeah, so there's the route, but if you're to have it just be like a different set of dashes until it snaps over to the actual route line, that'd be great. Just to kind of show what it's doing. Registration. I don't think that's the right registration. Of course, that could have been what SimBrief put. Is that what SimBrief put? Yeah, that's what SimBrief put. GFBIG. Okay, weird. I would have thought it would have loaded the one from. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean it does the job. It definitely shows everything. I'm just trying to think, like, weather is always a good feature to have on here, and of course having the controllers is basically, that's what you really want, but it would be neat too if you filtered out like the different airlines. So I just wanted to see all the JetBlue airplanes flying around today, or I just want to see all the Southwest airplanes flying around today. I know that's probably a big down the road kind of thing, but there you go. So that's VatEye.app, everybody, and I will try to remember when I put this on YouTube to put that in the comments down below so you guys can check that out. But yeah, and there you go. So yeah, so he says he's already got his eye on filters. So that's always neat. I imagine maybe a swing out menu later for controllers to let you decide what levels of controllers you want to display. If you want to just see just the radar positions, if you want to see tower positions, that could also be sometimes useful, because the trouble with having all the controllers online in this kind of format is, like, you get over here and it starts to get pretty. I mean, you can zoom in pretty nicely, but it starts to get pretty cluttered pretty quickly. So maybe I just want to see just the radar. But yeah, that's really neat. I'm just trying to think of what other constructive suggestions I could offer at this point. Just trying to think what else I could offer. Yeah, Alright, so he says that will help a lot. Thank you so much for doing that in the odd for so long, but it will have a streamer bar in the bottom just like the flights that it's showing. Okay, yeah, I see the bar here at the bottom. It's just, I guess right now it's just showing random flights, but... And apparently I'm going to be added to the list of streamers, so everyone will know when I'm online, for better or for worse. But, no, it looks good. It looks really good. I like the interactivity. I'm just curious if does anything happen when I click on controllers yet. Trying to click on a controller here, and it just keeps on showing me more and more airplanes. Maybe I'll just click on Providence because no airplanes around there. Do I get the information for a controller? Nothing yet, probably. If you're just working on it, that probably doesn't show anything yet. So I'm not trying to show the shortcomings of the system. That's the trouble with like trying to release stuff in alpha, and it's. I've talked about this before, but I do think it's a problem we have in this software development world where everyone feels compelled now. Pardon me, I'm just going to scroll up so I can see my altitude there. Yep, we're getting there. Everyone seems very compelled to release early access versions of everything to the wide public, and it's a double-edged sword because, I mean, it's nice to kind of get community feedback early on in a project, but sometimes that community feedback could end up taking your project in directions maybe you weren't really 100% sure it was going to go. And, you know, at what point does it stop being your baby as a project when you start taking in so much community feedback that the baseline of the project almost shifts to kind of meet the community? So, you know, I think about some games like the one that just came out of early access that I've always loved since it first came into early access was Satisfactory. So I don't know if you guys have ever played Satisfactory, but it's a really fun factory game. It's Factorio, but take it into like a 3D, like first-person type environment. But it's been in early access for like 4 years now before it finally reached like its full release just this month, full 1.0 release, which is great. And it was really pretty well polished in the beginning. It wasn't the stages were not complete, but the polish was there. It looked very good in the beginning. There were glitches here and there, but for the most part, it was a pretty polished game right in the early access stage. But they had a very interactive community manager that they took a lot of feedback from the community, and a lot of people had things that they wanted to see happen. They wanted to see combat with the aliens become a little bit more intense, and perhaps, you know, respawning enemies so that you'd have to constantly be producing ammunition and ways to fight them off. You'd have to build walls around your factory to protect from the animals, much like Factorio was. But the developers of Satisfactory very much held the line and kind of stuck to what I think their original vision was, which was the enemies are there to kind of provide a little bit of a challenge, so you can't just go and pick up all the bonus things easily. You have to put a little bit of work into getting access to these things. But they didn't want to make it so onerous either. They didn't want to make it so that you were constantly trying to fight off enemies. So that, you know, there were people who suggested things like that, and you know, in this case, the developers at Satisfactory, Coffee Stain Studios, they really kind of, I think they held their line and they kind of kept their vision pretty close to original. They did a lot of quality of life improvements that people asked for when they're building stuff, but I think the game stayed very true to its original vision. But that's one of the problems with early access, is that you take in so much information from the community that oftentimes the game you end up making may not be the game you wanted to make originally. So yeah, I mean, you've got to know kind of what you want to do and be ready to say no. That's one of the hardest things in this world, especially when you're trying to get out there in front of a community and make a community happy and build a community and say, we want you people to like our game. What will make you like our game? Oh, if we change it a little bit so it does this. We change it so it's more like that game, but that's not what you wanted to do originally. There's 32 climbing 33. Thank you. So yeah, The other side of it too is, like, you often get products sometimes in early access that are really not ready. Like, I've got to say, Satisfactory was, I think, a shining example of how to do early access. They kind of limited the tiers of the game. You only had access to the first couple tiers at the beginning, but you had the whole map. It did change. The map did change a little bit over time, and graphics were improved, and some stuff was changed and tweaked as they kind of balanced stuff more. But the what am I trying to say? The overall tone of the game didn't change very much. They very much kind of just it was also very, very polished and relatively bug-free at the start of early access. I won't say it's not completely bug-free because it never was, and no game ever is. But it was better at early access than a lot of big AAA games have been at their primary release date, and that's important and that's useful. There's nothing worse than getting an early access product, but it's so broken you really can't even enjoy and understand the product and get the joy out of it that you want to get out of it. There's mock-out cruise, so you should do a quick cruise procedure here, so let's just have a quick look around. But that's one of the problems with early access, is that a lot of companies release things for early access that are really not polished enough for early access yet. And that can be a real problem, because then it ends up driving your customers away. I've played a number of early access games, and some of them are good, and some of them are like they're just so full of bugs that you can't even get past. You can't even play them. All right, there goes Catlin, which is our first waypoint. So let me also do a quick check here. Let me just write this down. So here's our flight plan, flight log, and we're at Catlin at 14:59 with 12.2. Let me just change this color so it's a little easier to see. So 14:59 and 12.2. So we're just about bang on the fuel, maybe 100 kilos up on the fuel. I'm going to do a time check in a second. First of all, I'm going to finish my cockpit flow here. Just make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. All the switches, anything that's moved is where it's supposed to be. Basically what you're doing in the cruise check is you're replicating the pre-flight flight preparation flow, just to make sure you've got everything in there that you're supposed to. Alright, so that's all done. Quick RVSM check. Flight level 330, flight level 330. And yeah, the altimeters all look pretty accurate. Compass check because it's the first flight of the day. We're on 049-ish. Yeah, it's pretty darn accurate. Okay, good. Alright, let's go back and figure out what time we took off at. So I started the timer when we took off, 26 minutes, so it was about 15:34 we'll say we took off at. Maybe even 15:37. And then we'll just crunch our numbers here for the whole flight. So we took off at 15:37. And I did these wrong, but anyways. 15:37. So that should be... not 15:37, 14:37. Just do that again. 14:37. 26 minutes after that is 15:03, I think. Unless I'm miscalculating here. 23, yeah. So we're running quite a bit ahead of schedule here. Just going to do these so that we can do our appropriate time checks on the way. 15:49. 15:57. 15:02. See me make a mistake, call it out. I am generally pretty good at math, but it's easy to sometimes, when you're trying to do it in a hurry, let things slip. And of course, when you're going to and from New York, there's airways with a waypoint every 2 minutes, so it takes forever to do this calculation here. Sometimes you do like a flight across half the country and there's only like 10 waypoints in the whole flight. In this one, there's 10 waypoints in half an hour. Adds up to about the same time I see in the box here though. 17:10, 17:11, 17:14. $17.26. I think I had 27 in the box. So that's a rounding error at this point. So it does all seem to add up, so it looks good. we are a little bit ahead of schedule already, according to where we got to Catlin. So maybe that'll continue to work out in our favor. We'll get there a little bit early. Not that I don't like streaming, but 3 hours is a bit long sometimes. I can already kind of feel my throat kind of dying out a little bit, which is odd. Yeah, I was going to do a stream 2 weeks ago. I did have a couple days off on that first week of September when the kids went back to school. I was really kind of looking forward to doing a stream, and then I got sick. The way home from work, the last leg on the last day, it was a deadhead leg, and I got sick by the end of it. I had a sore throat by the end of it, and the next day I kind of felt like, and it was not a terrible sickness, but I had a sore throat the whole day, and I just kind of knew it was going to be one of those, like, if I try to talk for 3 straight hours, my voice is going to die after about an hour. So I just knew it wasn't in the cards, and it was a bit of a shame because I was looking forward to it. I have been kind of looking forward to it. I've had the schedule set up in a pilot's life for the better part of I don't even know now. It's been probably about 2 months that I've had the schedule in here, so I've been kind of excited to do it, and especially as soon as the 321 came out, it's like, oh, let's do it. Let's get out there, let's do it. But at the flip side, I just didn't have the time. August was, my schedule was crammed crazy full. I had training in August. I also had training in September, and which means more work days. So it really added up to a lot of days. We had a little kind of mini camping vacation, which was great fun. But it was one of those cases where, like, every single time I came home from work, it felt like I was turning around and going back somewhere. We were getting in the car, we were driving somewhere, we were going somewhere every single time we had a day off. And it's just like, the days off did not feel like days off. There was always something to do. And it's felt like that since at least the beginning of August now. Here we are mid-September, second half of September. And I feel like for 6 weeks, I feel like I've barely gotten a day to myself. There was one little interlude where we did kind of take some time for ourselves. So the last weekend in August, I had a couple days off, and we were going to go back up to the in-laws' cottage, and we just couldn't do it. Just like about 2 or 3 days before that, we kind of looked around, and my wife was just like, I can't see myself packing to go to the cottage again. The kids have gone like 4 times, so I've packed every single time for them that they've gone, and it's just turned into one of those, like, she's just like, I don't want to do it. I have no interest at all in doing it, and she loves going to the cottage. It's a really beautiful place. The building's a little bit run down, but the beach is fantastic, so it's nice to go up there and spend time up there. It's very relaxing. There's very little to do, which is just nice in this world where it always seems like you're always under time pressure to do things. So it's nice to have that kind of relaxation, but the effort of packing everything, and it's not only kids, but we got to pack stuff for dogs. We got to make sure we have food for dogs, and we got to get all this stuff into the car, drive for 4 hours each way, and there came a point where it's just like the idea of doing it was way more work than the relaxation you're going to get while you were there. So instead, we just flipped it to we're just gonna hang around. We're going to do nothing for like 4 days. We're just going to have a 3-day, 4-day weekend of just doing almost nothing. And so we kind of did that, and it was just really pleasant. We sat around the house, we swam in a pool, we just, we rode our bikes, went around for ice cream, but we really dialed it down a notch. There's almost this pressure in Canada to get stuff done during the summer, to go out quickly. You've got 2 months of hot weather. Go out, do as many things as possible in that 2 months. And it just turns into, more work that way. I get it, because I agree. Like, it's September, and it's a really pleasant month out there this month. But it is getting cooler. You're definitely not swimming in the pool anymore. I think we're going to close the pool next week, because I think it's just nobody's swimming in it anymore. It's cool. The nights are cool, which means the temperature in the water is cooled off enough. So, but it just feels that way. I just feel like for the last 6 to 7 weeks, it's been just nonstop, like always something. And even when you think you're going to have a day off, like this week, I thought I had 3 days off. It turns out I only had 2 days off. I had my schedule backwards, so I thought I only had 2 days off. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do streaming on one day, and then the other day I'll just kind of relax. I'll do some studying and some reviewing, and I'll just otherwise I'll just relax and try and unwind. And then, of course, the last day of work, just at the start of the last day of work, the furnace is leaking water all over the floor. And I was like, really? So I end up having to fix that. that was actually no, sorry, that was not on my day. That was my other day off. It was just a block drain hose, but you know, just one more thing. You got to take some time out of your day to go and do. It took me probably about an hour and a half to really. I really went to town and cleaned it out well. I got the pressure washer and just absolutely washed all the gunk out of the hose and everything. So it took me a little while to get that done. And it worked, but it, you know, and it's nice to not have to spend money to get somebody to come in and fix something. But just it's another one of those like, here was a day off. Oh yes, that's what happened. Was one of our outlets, our GFCI outlets, would not properly reset, so I ended up having to replace that. So it's a simple job, but it's like by the time you've driven to go get another plug, replaced it, all that sort of stuff, you know, you've killed a couple of hours of your day off, and so much for kicking up with your feedback. It very quickly becomes, it didn't feel like a day off. So it's been a hard time just to find the time to do these streams, and I love doing these streams. They're fun. I really do enjoy them, but it has just been a non-stop goat show since at least the last part of July and early August. I'm kind of looking forward to slowly dialing the pace down a little bit as winter approaches, but I don't think that's going to happen. There's some stuff going on that's going to keep filling up my life, so there's probably going to be some pretty large stretches that I may not get a whole lot of live streaming in, that I may just I may not have the time, and it's a pity. I've tried to do it like at least twice a month when I've got these seasons going, but it's just I don't know if that's going to fit into the schedule. I think next week actually I have 2 a lot of days off, so I'm trying to close the pool, but I think I can probably find some time next week, so we'll see if we can get leg number 2 done next week. So let's have a look at what's in leg number 2. All right, so here we go. We are on our way, but I haven't really opened up this app too much all summer long. But let's go ahead and let's go to the dashboard first of all. Let's just see what's going on the dashboard, because I have some messages and I haven't even really looked at those. So let's have a quick look here. So I did get salary income for my last flight. So basically, yeah, last week of June, first week of July, I got $83 of that flight. Well, that was something. I have a friend request from July, so I'll have to go and accept that now. And then they wanted to have Saturday night event, or Saturday event polls, so I don't really participate in the events on this system, and I use it mostly for the scheduling. Okay, so let's go back to community, and we'll go ahead and accept a friend request here. It's always interesting to kind of look at this every once in a while, too. Friend request received. Nothing? Yeah. Either I accepted it back then, or he rescinded his friend request, or maybe it's still loading. It seems to be being very slow now. Nothing, huh? Okay, weird. It's also interesting just to look at the size and scope of this network every single time and see who's also moving up the ranks, because some of the people that you saw back in the day are not in here anymore. There. Mark Menendez was for a long time was very active, and now he's slipped to number 10 on the XP leaderboard, and it's disappeared altogether off the cash leaderboard. X-Pilot MX has $473,000. I have like $4,000. I have like nothing. Some of these people on this list, it's insane. Is this the entire list? No, it's top 500. Even the 500 richest guy has $17,000 in the bank, which is enough to get another type rating. I do not have close to that, but I could probably amass more money if I flew when off stream. But I like to do it on stream. It's become like a little bit of a pet project now to just document it all. As much as I kind of hate reality TV sometimes, and I'm not a big fan of reality TV in a lot of ways, so sometimes the irony. I hate the things I do. Unless I do them. I don't know. It's interesting how the leaderboard in terms of XP really doesn't match the cash leaderboard anymore. There's a few people that are kind of common between these. I see Ray Steele here from the United States here on both of them. I see Senior Captain on both of them, but a lot of people are not. And then, of course, there's Ben Dover. Anywho, what I was really going to show you, before I got distracted here, was our schedule for this season. So season 13 of A Pilot's Life. We are already on leg number 1 from New Orleans to Boston. Then after that, we got the long leg. So we'll see how this goes. It's supposed to be from Boston. It's supposed to be at Denver and back. That would be a good leg to have something happen halfway. And I'm kind of sometimes messing with that idea of let's make some stuff happen. Let's make some stuff fail. So yesterday, and I'm not sure if somebody did it. So here's the interesting thing now is I taught the people who live in my house how to access the failure page for the Fenix remotely through the network, through their devices, through the web server that serves up the EFB pages. So they can go in and they can set up whatever failures they want, and I don't know about them. And that is the fun part, because you can set specific failures that have a very specific mindset or a very specific combination of failures, but I don't know that they're coming, and that is the best trainer of all, is when you don't see things coming. So last night I was doing a flight, and I was like 2 hours into the flight. It was almost just under 2 hours into the flight, and all of a sudden, cruising along at 36,000, engine 2 goes. Just shut right down. Completely caught me off guard, and I love it though, because I'm not expecting it. I don't know what to expect. I don't know when to expect it. I taught them how to use it, taught them how to trigger things after X time, how to trigger things after takeoff or landing or speeds or altitudes, whatever you want. I explained some of the different failures. I made a whole list of the failures, and I made a whole list of failures. I don't know where my list went. Where did my list go? Did I knock it on the floor or something? I had it here on my desk for a little while, but like it was literally 4 pages front and back, like listing all the failures you can do in the Fenix to the different systems. It's crazy when you start to look at it, and it's still not close to everything that you can fail in an Airbus. There's all sorts of weird failures that can happen in an Airbus. The one thing that Fenix doesn't do that happens all the time in the Airbus is it doesn't do indication failures. It doesn't do display indicator failures, which is it'll only fail like one of the big systems, but like any number of these indicators could stop working. So maybe your EGT on the one engine stops working. It just goes XXX just through those. Engine still keeps on turning, and it's just fine, but it doesn't show you that. Common one that you see is brake sensors. Often the connectors for the brake sensors often work their way loose after a while, and so that's always an interesting MEL when you have that. It's hard to simulate in the Fenix, but when you have that, so you'll go to the wheel page, and one of your brake temperature sensors will just be XX. And so you won't know the temperature of that brake. You can probably infer the temperature of the brake from what the temperature of the other 3 brakes that you do have a temperature for are doing, but you're not allowed to do that technically. So the MEL for that is long and complicated, and let's look at it. It's not something you can really simulate in Fenix though properly, because you can't simulate just the indication failure. Let's see here, where would it be? Probably under landing gear. Did I miss it? Maybe I missed it. Nope, I think it's here. System, accumulator pressure indicator, brake pressure indicator. No, maybe not. Maybe I missed it. Brake temperature monitoring unit. Brake fans. Nope, maybe I missed it. Was it in this first one there? Brake temperature indication. Yeah, it's the very first one. Brake temperature indication. Brakes hot alert not displayed. But yeah, so it's a pretty simple MEL. You can defer all of them if you want, provided you apply the ground brake cooling time. So instead of looking at how cool the brakes are, what you have to do is you have to run through the whole table. And oh my god! All right, so 320701. So it'll be right here at the start of chapter 32, but it's an ordeal and a half. So brake energy graph. So you have to go and use this graph, and you have to record all the details of each landing so that either whoever's flying the airplane next, either you or the next crew, can figure out how much energy you put into the brakes on landing. So their typical example here had a weight of 70 tons. They landed at basically 130 knots on a let's see here, at a pressure altitude of 4,000 feet. The temperature was, looks like 20 degrees C. Sorry, 20 degrees, so ISO plus 20, sorry, it was ISO plus 20 at 4,000 feet. There was a, 15 knot headwind on landing. There was no runway slope, and they used auto brake medium, and they came out with 35 megajoules of energy was put into the brakes on that landing. So you've got to figure out that chart with or without thrust reverse, and then you got to come to the cooling table and whether or not you have fans or not. The top one is the turnaround time without fans. The bottom one's the turnaround time with fans. With. So what did I say? In this example here, it came out as 35 megajoules of energy were put into the brake. So at 35 megajoules of energy, if the temperature outside is 20 degrees, which is fairly reasonable, if you have brake fans running, you could turn around and take off again 64 minutes after touchdown. If you don't have brake fans running, you have to wait 130 minutes. So that's 2 hours and 10 minutes between touchdown and takeoff. These are extreme examples. And not that I'm giving you an extreme example, but the thing about using this chart is it is super conservative. It assumes like absolute worst case scenarios in terms of just all the energy went into the brakes, nothing went into the thrust reversers, or very little went into the thrust reversers. Chances are, this ground brake cooling time assumes like, a calm wind day too, so that, there's no air blowing past the brakes at all to aid in the cooling. In reality, it never takes that long. You can do that same exact landing, but as long as you've got brake temperature sensors, you can see the fact that they're under 300 degrees by the time you go to take off. Boom, we're fine. We can turn this airplane around in 40 minutes easily. But it becomes extremely complicated when you're doing this chart because you've got to use the chart. But the other thing too is you've got to remember when you do the landing is you've got to mark down all this information. You've got to mark down the touchdown speed. You've got to mark down the temperature, the outside temperature, the wind at the touchdown, the weight. All these things you've got to mark down to give the next crew the information they need to make the appropriate calculation. If you do not mark it down, then generally the company policy is to use the highest number available on the table. So if you were to reach the highest number on this table for this particular aircraft, 207 minutes. So that's 3.5 hours. You'd have to wait before you can take off again if you don't have the information to know that it's less than that. In reality, you have to apply this table, but in reality, we know that it's never going to usually take that time. These tables are so extremely conservative, but it's a big, long, convoluted process to do it. You got to have someone sit there, look at the table. We got to have the other group write down all this stuff. It adds a lot of time. For such a simple malfunction as just the indicator's not working properly, so the brake sensor is not working, the brake temperature sensor is not working properly, it becomes a big complicated MEL. So there's tons of MELs on the aircraft and tons of interesting failures in the aircraft that are not simulated by Fenix, mostly because there are a lot of times they're indication faults, but you've got to kind of assume the worst if you can't see the indication. But there's all sorts of indicators that can be broken or burnt out, not receiving valid data that may or may not have an impact on the operation. So even for the list of 200 and something failures that the Fenix supports, like you could literally, there's thousands of possible failures that can affect an A320 that you may have to deal with. So I've only scratched the surface of this MEL because I keep trying to find interesting stuff to do, but a lot of the interesting stuff is oftentimes it's just display failures. Like that brake one is a really interesting one to do, but we really can't simulate it because I can't remove that one brake indicator. Anyways. Yeah, I went off on a long tangent there, but I'm hoping, we'll see how the time looks. It's a bit of a long flight, like I said, it's a 4-hour flight, 4-hour and 40-minute flight from Boston to Denver. That's a long stream. So that's why I'm kind of almost thinking like that would be the kind of stream where it'd be great to show an engine failure halfway through the stream or an engine fire or something and go just divert to Chicago and be done with it rather than fly the whole thing. Not that you want to plan on an engine failure or anything like that, but that's sort of my frame of mind a little bit is there something I can do to make this 4-hour stream more interesting and shorter at the same time, because 4 hours just it starts to get excruciating. And I've done it before. I've done the long haul streams. I don't think I'll do them again. I did that. I think I did 2 turns when I was doing Transat back on the P3D days. I did 2 turns to Europe, from North America to Europe. I think I remember doing one to Nice. Was it 2 to Nice? I remember doing 2 turns. I think one of them was to Amsterdam. I think maybe. But oh my god, like a 6 or 7 hour stream. It's like you got to set aside a whole day of your life to do this stream, and it was. I'll never do it again. Even 4 hours really is stretching me to the max. And talking for that long, trying to find things to talk about, keep the stream interesting for that long is tough too. So I like these 3-hour ones. They're good. So we'll see how that works. But that is the plan anyways, is Boston, Denver, and back. And I hemmed and hawed over this one. I said, Denver's an interesting airport. It's a bit of a long flight, but I hemmed and hawed for a while before I accepted the schedule, because that long 1,500 4-hour flight kind of put me off a little bit. After that, we'll have some slightly shorter legs. We'll go from Boston down to Fort Lauderdale, back up to New York, down to West Palm, back up to JFK. Pardon me. And then back down to Fort Lauderdale again. And then from Fort Lauderdale, we do a Mobay. We go down to Mobay and back up to JFK. So, yeah, we could almost even do, maybe if we do a long stream, we could do 2 legs, combine the New York Fort Lauderdale with the Fort Lauderdale to Mobay, because that's not a terribly long one. It's an hour 48. We can probably do it even faster than that. But that is the schedule. So it's a little bit of back and forth. A few different airports. I was really happy to see Boston. That was one thing that kind of surprised me. For working JetBlue for like 2 seasons so far, I don't think I'd been to Boston yet, and yet it's a huge hub for JetBlue. So I don't know how the schedule worked out. That I was always going to these New York airports, JFK and LaGuardia constantly, but hadn't been to Boston yet. So I was happy to see Boston come in the schedule. So that's kind of why I like this as well. Although that Denver turn is going to be a bit of a slog. We'll see what happens. But she's definitely going to be a slog. Okay, let's just have a quick look at the company message here. I'm sure I know what it says. We probably left the gate 3 minutes late. It's just because we were just getting stuff done. We'll call it, what am I doing here? AOC. No, not that. ATC. AOC. JetBlue Ops wants delay coding. Wow, I don't know why I'm tired. 35 minutes, that's not right. I don't think I set the departure time properly in the sim brief, so I'm just going to disregard that message altogether then. I think it was like 2 minutes, not 35 minutes. By the time we got off the gate, but yeah, so far though, I'm enjoying this 321. It's a good airplane. I've been flying it a lot. I won't say I've given up on the triple, but I finally did something which I've been meaning to do for a while, which was I got rid of my yoke. So I used to have my yoke right here in front of me, and then I still have the Airbus side stick over here, and I had the honeycomb next to the yoke, but I had the honeycomb and the yoke mounted under the desk on one piece of metal, and I removed them finally. I got rid of them, so I have like leg room again. I can put my knees up here. It's like an Airbus. I got room for a tray table and got room for my legs and everything. Because the trouble with that was like I was banging my knees constantly on the bottom of my yoke, so you had to either sit really low or sit way back. I found it was a very awkward position. But the reason I did that was because I did finally. I want to show you. I want to show you what I had, but unfortunately, the one thing that happened, of course, is that my camera on my phone stopped working a while back in early August. No, I was in July, I think, wasn't it? That and it had been problematic every once in a while. My phone would not work for an hour or two, and then finally one day in July, go figure, a day I was going on a trip, and I wanted to have the phone available for me to take pictures with. Wouldn't work, and it hasn't worked since. So I'm pretty sure it's a hardware failure in my phone. So then it really kind of became a question of like, do you want to replace your phone? Like it's maybe an 18-month, 2-year-old phone. It's not that old yet. It's really not the replacement time yet. And not only that, but none of the phones out there have headphone jacks anymore, which is something to me that is essential for a phone. For a digital device that I use to listen to music oftentimes when I'm either out and about doing chores or errands, or also when I'm deadheading, having music is important to me, and I'm not wasting money on AirPods, battery-powered, 2-year lifespan e-waste that is known as AirPods. So it's not even, or anything like that, any kind of wireless earbuds. Like, it's such a pointless technology. I get the convenience, but the convenience is not worth the environmental cost of these stupid little disposable $150, $200 products that are disposable, designed to be disposed of within 2 years. Like, it's a perfect example of capitalism run amok. Way too much money being spent on that kind of stuff. But so I want a phone with a headphone jack, and I get it. Lots of people like the earbuds, and that's fine. If you really want to go down that road, then that's fine. Put a Bluetooth chip in there, but for the love of God, don't take the headphone jack out for the people who want it. Why are you forcing the people who want to use a different technology to not use it anymore? That's the part that bugs me about this whole thing. This whole brick phone system that we've got. Whoa, less buttons is better. Less ports in your phone is better. Like, oh well, yeah, you can plug a dongle into your USB port, but okay, what happens when I need to charge my phone while listening on the headphones? As sometimes happens at the end of a long day when you get a deadhead flight and your phone's almost out of batteries. I want to listen to music, but it also needs to charge at the same time. Can't do both. Why? Because you thought it's smart to only have one port in there. It's not smart. It's one of those cases where leave the old technology in there. You don't have to necessarily force people to use it. Let people make the choice. But forcing people to choose to use expensive use of technology. So I would rather keep my phone without a camera for a much longer period of time, for a much more reasonable period of time. And I thought about the repair too, and again, it's just one of those things. It's kind of nice to be not one of these people standing there looking at your whole life through the window with a cell phone camera. There's so many people that, like, if you don't take a picture of it, it never happened. It's like, just live in the moment, just live in the now. That being said, of course, sometimes it is convenient to have a phone camera built into your phone. So I'm trying to think now. So I'm going to see if I can get my tablet to do this. It doesn't need audio. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can pull this up on here so I can just show you guys why I don't need my honeycomb yoke anymore. There we go. That's a little better anyways. Okay. So, as you probably know, over the last year or so, I did get the mini FCU, which of course it's a big important part of my live streaming. Here we go. That's always fun right there, that view right there. Yeah, so in order to complete the Airbus experience, of course, I have the quadrant over here. But I also recently added, and I kind of slide it under here when I'm not using it a little bit, but I added the full Thrustmaster Airbus quadrant here. So we have a spoiler axis, we have a flap axis, we have parking brake. Let's see here. We have engine master, engine mode selector, and you do have fully functional detents, thruster for the flaps. You have fully functional detents for the thrust. We have reverse locks. yeah, it's a simple. It's not simple. I mean, it's a pretty complicated quadrant, but it's now the entire Airbus quadrant. Not quite in the right locations, mind you, and I've thought about that. I've thought about separating them and moving the locations so that they're a bit more realistic, but having that parking brake there, but having the spoiler and the flap lever was kind of the last thing. The gear kind of sucks there because that's not close to where the gear is in reality, but yeah, that's kind of what we've got going on right now. I'm just going to kill that for now. But that's what finally got to get rid of the honeycomb. So the honeycomb for a long time was my thrust levers. It was my flaps. It was my speed brakes. It was everything. So I kind of need to have that under there because I linked it to my yoke as well for the underdesk mount. The two were connected, so I couldn't remove one without the other. So having those Airbus thrust levers and everything now I can fly the Airbus in Airbus mode. So I got rid of everything under my knees. I have nothing directly in front of me anymore. Right down here is all just blank. It's just knees, which is great. It's a big step up from where I was before, just in terms of space, getting some space back at my desk, because the U-shaped desk is really nice, but all the flight sim accessories are just slowly crowding me out here, and you end up with not enough space. So, yeah, that was the one investment I made in the last few months, was just to complete the Airbus effect. So I've got the thrust levers with detents, which is fantastic. Having the detents was huge to me, and I was debating 3D printing detents for the honeycomb, but I figured I would probably get the Airbus quadrant sooner or later. That one was huge, and then the flaps and spoilers were not as big a deal. I could use the ones on the honeycomb, and they were realistic enough. But yeah, also having the flap detent, I would actually print the flap detent on the honeycomb before I got the Thrustmaster add-on there. But yeah, I just find it's a much more realistic location. It's a much more realistic feeling, and I'm so happy to get rid of everything under my knees. But that's the reason why I haven't been flying the 777 and the 37 as much, is because now that I've got them out of there, I can bring them back, and I can probably mount it in about 5 minutes. It really is not that hard. It's big, it's bulky, but it mounts pretty easily. But it's just a question of the hassle of it. So I'll do it from time to time, and I'll fly the Boeing products for a number of back-to-back sessions. So. But when I want to kind of live in the Airbus world, I get rid of that. So I wish there was an easier way to kind of move it and get rid of it and bring it back. I don't think I can. And I've kind of puzzled over it. And that was one of the big things that I didn't like. And I kind of wanted to come up with a method. I've spent a long time thinking about it. I couldn't come up with anything I was happy with. I came up with all sorts of ideas. I had different ideas. I said, what if we did a drawer mount underneath, so you could slide the yoke and the honeycomb out of the way when you don't need it, but then bring them back up to where you bring them back up front and clamp them in place when you need it. Couldn't really think of any practical way, just because of the shape. You would have had to kind of had it mounted even lower to be able to slide the yoke underneath the desk, so that kind of didn't work. I kind of thought, is there a flip up? Can I do a flip up where I flip it up out of the way so I can have my keyboard in front of me, but I can flip this down when I want? And I'm curious to know what other people do. The other thing I've contemplated in the last little while, and I haven't 100% settled on, is I've thought about the way my desk is designed. Is it's designed to either be straight or an L, and what I've done is I've put a straight section and an L next to each other to make the U. It's almost more like a J than a U. But I thought about straightening out the one side, so it's more just like an L-shaped desk, so I have a lot more room, so I can slide over there, I can have my stream here, and then I can slide over here to use the keyboard and use the screen normally. I'm just curious what other people do to try and make their flight sim take up less space, because my computer, I have one computer, and it is kind of my do-everything. I do have a laptop that I do take with me on the road for portable stuff, but my one computer does everything. It's not just flight sim, it's everything I need to do on a computer. So sometimes it's good to have the accessories in front of you, but sometimes when you're doing something like typing up a report or filling out a form or just doing anything on the internet where you need the keyboard, like I was reaching so far to try and get to the keyboard, it was very awkward. So I wanted a way to get rid of the yoke when I didn't need it, but also be able to bring it back pretty easily when I need it. And this was the best I could come up with, was just unplugging it. So I got USB extension cords, so the plugs are all very close under here. It's not hard to unplug it and plug it in. clamping it on. Clamping it on is not hard either. The biggest hassle is just the moving of it. It's awkward. I have it sitting on top of a shelf way on the other side of the room now. Lifting it up, bring it over. It's not hard, but it's just awkward. But I couldn't think of anything better. I'd be curious to see if anybody's come up with anything better. Like a dedicated SimPit is one thing. If you can just say, yeah, this is my permanent SimPit, and then you know my flight controls, everything around over here. When I want to do something that's not simming, I have a different computer over there that I use, or even just a different monitor. I don't know. I've thought about that actually. I have an old monitor. Maybe I should do that. I should invest in like a KVM switch, and just when I want to just switch to kind of using the computer normally, I can just go over there where the other monitor is, still access the same computer. Good morning, Tom at GT. Welcome to the chat. I hope you're doing well. Everything's good on this end. We're just cruising along nicely. Not much is happening, and that's okay. We are getting there. There's not much ATC online. I'm just looking over here now at VatSpy. I haven't really looked at it since we took off, but there is nobody in Boston. There's a few ground controllers online. It's early in the day. I didn't expect to see much ATC. I was hopeful. I did a flight yesterday morning, and I had Houston ATC, so I thought maybe we might have some ATC for departure, but no. Yeah, that's what you get when you stream early in the day, and that's the best time I have to do it, so. Best flight is an uneventful flight. Yes, unless you're streaming and you want something to happen to engage everyone and keep everyone interested. Then it's a different story. Yeah. What was the other thing that I want to talk about too? So there's another interesting thing that happened here, and I'm just going to bring it up really quickly if I can here. So there's a new system that was announced, and this was back towards the end of August. So I kind of read this and I kind of went, and I wasn't quite sure what to think about it. I'm happy to discuss it and talk about it, and I'm not against it per se when I've started to read a little bit more about it. But Auto-ATC, so another new trial had taken place in U.S. airspace. So along with the CTAF trial, we now have the Auto-ATC trial, and basically it seems like the biggest thing is kind of getting you set up for arrival in uncontrolled airspace. So when ATC is not online, the system will recognize it and it will give you appropriate altitude instructions. So the examples given here: descend and maintain 11,000, Providence altimeter 2992, or cross, I think it's Calverton at maintain 12,250 knots, Kennedy altimeter 2992, descend via the JFund 2, Boston altimeter 2992. Just to set people up for arrival properly. This does and I can see there is some charm and some use to this, because that is probably one of the most common problems with uncontrolled airspace, is you get people who don't descend until the very last minute. There's no restrictions, so you have this problem often with people who don't understand the charts, don't read the charts, don't have the charts, and so typical example is like we'll take the Calverton one. So if I can bring up my Navigraph charts here for the other end here. So there are crossing restrictions here. There's G-pole below 270. Providence cross, expect at 250 knots at 11,000 feet. So it's not a hard altitude. So because, and this is a common problem in a lot of airports, especially kind of in the Northeast, because this is not a hard altitude, but it's a landing for left and right, expect 250 knots at 11,000. What you end up having is you end up having people ignore this altogether. 95% of the time, if there's an expect on a chart, you're going to probably do that. You're probably going to meet that. Does this look better if I put it in the daytime mode? So you'll often get these because ATC wants to issue these restrictions below 270, expect below 270, expect at 230, expect 250 at 11,000 feet. 95% of the time, ATC will issue those restrictions. But the problem is that if ATC is not online to give you that restriction, and it's not in the box, so I can pretty much guarantee you, if we look in the box right now, you're going to see that none of the stuff is in there. So let's see if we got Baywall at 230 and Providence 250 at 11,000. So let's just do this. Get this to look nicely here. So let's zoom up here to the end of the line. So bay wall. Nope. Bay wall is at flight level 330 still. Not at 230. You go to Providence. 13,283 at 299 knots, not 250 at 11,000. So because those are expecs, they're never coded into the STAR database. The assumption is that you're only going to do them if ATC tells you to. 95% of the time ATC is going to tell you to do them. But we're not going to hard code them because you don't need to meet them if ATC hasn't told you to do that. That being said, any pilot worth their salt, when they see this on a chart, when they see expect across bay wall at 230, program that in. I'm going to do it right now because I'm that kind of pilot. Oops, wrong way. So flight level 230 at flight level 230. That's going to change the whole descent profile. Now all of a sudden we're going to have we're going to start our descent a lot sooner. So there's bay wall. So now bay wall at 230. So now we've started our descent somewhere pretty much right at news there, give or take, right at news. But yeah, a lot of these restrictions are very important, and especially, here's the thing too, is like when you're doing this approach into Boston's airspace, you're talking to New York Center until you get to about here. So if New York's not online, but Boston is online, but you don't call him until you're about here, and he says, yeah, cross bay wall at 230, and you have 15 miles to try and descend 10, 12, 14,000 feet, is never going to happen. So it helps because it puts all the traffic kind of onto a common thing, because pilots who kind of know what they're doing will fly these restrictions even if there's no ATC online, because these are kind of the normal restrictions you would expect, and they kind of work around the airspace. If everyone flies them, then everyone's flying a fairly consistent speed and pace, and all the arrivals work. But if one guy is cruising in and following these restrictions and you know, is slowing down at 250 here, and the guy behind him is like, oh, I'm going to go straight to the ILS to 4 right. If the restrictions are not in the box, I'm not going to do them. And he's going to be cruising at 33 until he gets to here. And then he's going to suddenly start screaming down at 300 knots, down across 13,000 feet here in intercept final. Obviously, there's going to be a conflict there. So if I've given everybody sort of a more common thing that you're going to expect, it's good if ATC's online. So if Boston's online but New York was not, you're already going to have this restriction. And then when you start talking to Boston, you pretty much already set up for it and met it. What it doesn't do is it doesn't do what you're suggesting there and work other traffic in. It's not gonna give you speeds to maintain separation from other traffic or turns or anything like that. This is a very, for lack of a better word, it's a very dumb system. It just basically is going to automatically give you these restrictions that you will get 95% of the time. That should pretty much be on the chart. And I don't know sometimes why we don't just put them on the chart, but. Yeah, that's the kind of thing it's doing. It's not going to be, it's not going to be a true ATC system. It's not going to separate you from other traffic or anything like that. Provide traffic advisory. It's just going to give you some of the more basic stuff. But at least that is going to be a step in the right direction. I think it's going to help. And I'm curious to see this. I really want to see this. I want to see if we get this restriction as we approach Boston. So I'm going to not do anything. I probably will fly the restrictions on the STAR actually, but the expects on the STAR. But I think it's a good idea. Yeah. I just think again it tries to put everyone back on the same page, because you get a lot of people who don't read the charts and think as long as I program the FMC, that's okay. Read the chart. Read the bloody chart, because the chart will have details sometimes that are not necessarily indicated in on the FMC. So I think it's a good step. It seems to get some mixed reviews, so I'm curious. I haven't actually. And there's some people who are like, well, why don't you just start a whole automated ATC system? You know what? We don't even need human controllers on VATSIM anymore. And I don't. At first, I was a little bit worried that that was sort of the first step of oh, we'll just replace all the controllers with AI and it's going to be fantastic and you'll never need to hire a human being again. But it's obviously not doing that. It's just sort of providing a little backstop so that at least things like altitude restrictions that are normally issued by controllers will still kind of be adhered to. And I mean, it behooves the pilot to listen to it anyways. ATC can tell you to do this all the time. If you don't know how to do it, how to program it in, or how to listen and how to follow that instruction, then this is not going to add anything anyways. But Yeah, so that was kind of my first impression, and just to sort of start to read through these, that seems to be the impression. It's like, oh, you know, VATSIM's going to just transition to being an automated system. I don't think that's what we're going for at all. I think everyone appreciates that VATSIM is a special place, and that it's the people on the network that make the network. I mean, the network is a bunch of, you know, individual pipes and servers and connections and commands going back and forth, but it's the people on either end of that you're connecting together that make it into a fun place to be. It's why I like to be on this network. I like to see the other people out there for all their human foibles. Sometimes they're perfect, sometimes they're not. The controllers make mistakes, the pilots make mistakes. It's fine. This, you know, stuff happens from time to time, but I do kind of like. I do kind of like the idea of having some kind of service in the unoccupied spaces. So that's what Tom at GT said. Just, well, wasn't there talk about having beyond ATC or say intentions integrate with VATSIM in uncontrolled airspace? There's something to be said for that. The first problem I have with that is that you can't have only half the people on the system. So in order to do that, you'd have to make those products free so that everyone uses them. And I don't see that happening. But, you know, and I'm not going to say that, I'm not trying to say that to mean that in a bad way. You know, software development costs money, and so these developers obviously created these products, say intentions and beyond ATC, with the idea of, you know, creating a realistic immersive experience, but also getting an economic return on their time investment. They're not doing it for free, and that's fine. Software development doesn't have to be for free. But this network was established for free and will continue to remain free to everybody who wants to participate in it through whatever way you want. So the idea of trying to backstop it with beyond ATC with one of these AI systems, the first problem with that is that, yeah, who's paying for that? Because I have some interest in them, but especially for the price that they're still asking for these products, I don't think they're worth the price. I don't think the AI ATC is worth the price at this point, and I see that they've kind of sliced them down already, sliced the prices down. Again, they need to drop the prices. For me, like, to consider it as being like a reasonable, something I would participate in, I'd need to see probably like about a 75 to 85% drop over the current prices for it to be viable for me. And that's just me, and I'm not saying that it's not worth something, but in order for me to feel like I'm getting enough value for the time I put into it, because my first priority will be to connect to this network. Will be to be connected to VATSIM and ready to be controlled by VATSIM. So if I'm logging on the busy evening hours, I'm not going to make any use of that, say intentions or beyond ATC during those busy hours where I'm logging on to VATSIM. And guess what? There are controllers around. I did a flight the other night and it was almost wall-to-wall controllers the whole time. So for me, I don't see the I don't see the cost benefit to it. Certainly not the current pricing structure. I pay a lot for all the various things that I do have. You know, for obviously internet access to get a hold of this, but for Navigraph as well as an annual fee. I do donate annually to VATSIM as well to help support the network as well. There's enough other regular expenses that the regular expense of trying to use one of those AI ATC systems, I don't see the value in it. I mean, I see the value, but for me, the value is not high enough for the price being asked. So that, I think, is probably the biggest problem. And then, yeah, like, the other problem that really kind of comes along is, like, and I have to see how this works. I mean, maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't, but how do you transition from uncontrolled airspace to controlled airspace? And what I mean is, how does the controller take over from beyond ATC or, say, intentions? Do they get a briefing? Does everything just suddenly vanish? And you have to figure out what beyond ATC was telling everybody for the last 20 minutes. Like, oh, they're using this runway. I want to use this runway, but they've already cleared all these people for this approach and told them to expect this runway. Like, it's enough of a gong show when you log on when everyone's just doing their own thing. But when you have people who are being told to do one thing by the system and then all of a sudden, boom, flip to a human being who's telling you to do something else because they're coming up with a different plan. Yeah, how does that handoff happen, and how does the handoff back to beyond ATC happen? You know, you log off as a controller, and all of a sudden beyond ATC says, yeah, no, we're not going to use 4 right boss, we're going to use runway 9, even though nobody lands on runway 9 because it's a weird, you have to approach over that building. I don't think there are approaches to 9, but yeah, how do you handle that transition too? Like, I think that would be awkward at best, to go from a live human being handing it off to AI and vice versa. Yeah, I could see a lot of issues there. Like when we do a controller handoff, like there's a decent amount of communication that happens. There's some watching that goes on, and there's some explaining. Well, here's what I was doing. You can change it if you want to. It's your ship once you take over, but this is what I was doing. And my tendency is, of course, once I take over, is to try and look at it and say, if I want to change runways, you know, I pick a place where it's pretty convenient, where like, okay, if these guys are all in the terminal airspace and already playing on this runway, I'm not going to change runways on them now unless it's really imperative. You know, there's a disabled airplane on the runway or something, but just for the wind shift, you know, people who are within 50 miles of landing, I'm probably going to leave them be and then just start the runway change further down the line. So, yeah, I don't know. But there's even, like, the conversation even happens between controllers in the handoff from one controller to the next about that sort of thing, about, oh, you know, and even things like, I hate to say it, but as controllers, we do talk about, you know, who seems to be a good pilot and who seems to be a rookie on the network and who looks like they need help. And you kind of, you'll drop that hint, like, yeah, keep an eye on this guy. He's having a hard time following instructions. That sort of hint. That's not something you're probably going to get from AI. Yeah, so anyways, I don't think this is that slippery slope, though. I don't think this is going to be VATSIM being moved into an AI system. This is very simple stuff, really, when you look at it. This is just simply, this is a very simple script. It's like, if airplane X inbound to airport XYZ on this, and with this flight filed arrival, at this time, give them that. Like, it's fairly easy, formulaic. This is the easy part of the ATC job, is give everybody the descent instructions at the appropriate time. This is not traffic separation or anything like that. So I see the value in this. I really do. I think this could actually be a good idea. So I'm really excited. Like, this is, I think, one of the first times I've done... This is the first time I've flown since this came out, but it was originally done in, let's see, what is that? Albuquerque, Boston, Jacksonville, Memphis, Oakland, and Seattle. Soon expanding to Denver, Minneapolis, New York. So... maybe I haven't been to any of those airports or any of those artsies recently, I guess. I haven't seen this yet. Yeah, incentives to avoid some chaos. So it's really like this Auto-ATC, it's really... Auto-ATC is almost a misnomer. It's really just auto-descent instructions is really what it is. Auto-descent instructions. It's really not air traffic control in the organization, air traffic control sense of the word. It's really just, these are the things that are done every day by rote, and you're just going to have automate that part if the ATC is not online to do it. I think it'll be very helpful. I think it has a good tendency to be helpful. The other thing that I think would be useful, could potentially be useful in this same vein, might be an automatic CTAF reminder. And I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Honestly, I just sort of thought about that, and I'm just kind of... I hadn't really thought about that till now, so... Because I think the CTAF system is working in the US. I think the trial is going quite well, and most people use it, but you get the occasional person who's completely clueless. Who doesn't know what frequency to use. They're probably not transmitting on Unicom anyways, in that case. But maybe a little reminder at 30 miles back from the field. Hey, select reminder, make it reminder. Boston ATC is offline. Make advisory calls on frequency. Blah blah blah. Like, do that at like 30 miles back. Just a little poke, a little reminder. Yeah, to me that would be in the same vein as this. It's just a little poke, a little reminder. This is probably the best thing for you to do, but it's not telling you to do it. I mean, we all need to take some personal responsibility on the flight deck, and don't need necessarily be told to do everything. Yeah. Tama GT says, off topic a bit, but have you tried the Flight Sim Studio 727 freighter? I have not. I really have no room in my hangar for new airplanes right now. I'm spending so much time with the bus right now. I've barely flown the triple. If I want to spend some time in another airplane, I would probably have to start actually using the triple again, because I haven't. The ones that, like, there's a couple that have gathered dust in my hangar. I bought the Concorde. I flew it a handful of times. I've really had a hard time with it, and it was more the autopilot. I found the autopilot very rough to operate. Maybe it's just because I'm used to a more modern flight deck but I found the autopilot was very hard to use. I haven't done a fuel check for a while here, so let's just do this here really quickly. So we're just passing Mashy right now. Alright, let's just do this. So Mashy at 1558 with 9.3. 1558, 9.3. So look at this. We're early. We're quite early. We're about on target for gas. We're still a consistent 100 kilos up on the gas over the flight plan. But Mashy, 1558, we're like 4 minutes ahead of schedule here, which I think was what we were at before. Yeah, we were at 4 minutes before. So for whatever reason, this happened quickly. And then we've just been maintaining that consistently throughout. So no, the answer is no, I haven't tried the 727. That does seem like an interesting airplane, but I've got so many airplanes that have gathered dust, even the Mad Dog. I really like the Mad Dog, but I don't have time for it. And there's an airplane that you can't get out of practice with, I find. And I think it's one of those catch-22s, the Mad Dog. I don't fly it because I feel like I'm out of practice, but I'm out of practice because I don't fly it. And then I don't feel inclined to fly it. I like it as an airplane. It's a fun little airplane. It's definitely a lot more manual, hands-on flying, and I imagine the 727 would probably be along the same lines. But no, I have not tried it. It's not because I don't want to, but I just know personally I just don't have the time. I'm really kind of living the Airbus life right now. If I want to change pace with the Airbus, I have the 37, which I know and understand. I find the 737 very intuitive, very automated enough that it's easy to use. And the triple especially now with that as well. For the amount of money I spent on the triple, I have not got my money's worth out of it. I have to fly that plane more. Yeah, and I totally understand your perspective there. So Tom GT says, fair enough, I'm on the fence, held off buying the 777. Figure I paid PMGG too many times for it in the past sims. Still intrigued, but looking forward to the Bluebird 757. Yeah, and the 757, 767, now there's an interesting one too, because there's a family that has not been in the simulator for a long time. What was it, the Level D 767, everyone really loved that. But that was 10, 15 years ago. Like that's long gone into the ether now as far as the modern sims are concerned. So yeah, the 757, 767 family, I think that could be a very interesting airplane. Again, I would want to see a more systems heavy airplane for sure. That's the way I like to fly. I like to fly realistic, to know that it's actually a bunch of systems running on. I'm not just checking the boxes. Okay, press this button, doesn't actually do anything, but press it anyways because you're supposed to. Yeah, so I think that it looks like they're kind of going in that direction though. So I think that would be a fun airplane. Just certainly very different, much more old school. You're getting into the older eras, and it's not that old school. Like, you're still talking like the same kind of era as the 47, as the NG37. Not a lot of systems automation, I imagine, but a reasonably somewhat modern flight deck. Definitely not, up to Airbus 87 level, but definitely a somewhat modern flight deck. Yeah, that would be an interesting airplane to fly as well. I would probably be interested in that, almost more than the freighter, I think, because the 67 still is around a little bit, as is the 57, the 27. And yeah, I think because I'm so invested in this modern age of aviation that I have a hard time flying the steam gauge airliners. I really do, and I like them. I like the DC-6. That DC-6 from PMDG was a lot of fun to fly around for a little while, and every once in a while I'll dust it off and I'll get it out of the hangar too. But yeah, right now, like I said, like I'm living the Airbus life because I've got the Airbus quadrants here, and because I've removed my yoke now, I don't tend to fly Boeing products. So I'll pick a week where I'll be like, okay, this week I'm going to fly. I don't fly the Boeing products. I'll fly the 37. I'll fly the 777. I'll even go and fly like a Cessna or the Citation, do some FS economy flying or something like that. And I'll wire my yoke up and I'll leave it there for a week. But I think that is kind of causing me to not want to do it as much, because it's just a little bit of hassle to get that yoke down and put it where I need it to be. All right, passing some descending traffic there. First person I've passed on this network. There's 1,100 people logged into the network. No, there's 1,500 people, 1,200 pilots logged into the network. I haven't passed anybody yet. And no real surprise there, in all honesty. We're getting there, though. We are just leaving. I'm just looking at this now. We're leaving Atlanta Center, and we're crossing into where New York Center will be. Oh, or sorry, not New York. Washington Center first. So we're getting there. We're getting there. We've got. We're about halfway. Should be seeing our ETP pass soon if we haven't already. Let's see here. What am I looking here? Data Equitime Point. No ETP. So we have passed the ETP. We are halfway. So that's good. That's good. We're getting there. I probably will need a little lunch break here. It's probably about as good a time as I need to take it now while there's not much going on. There's no ATC online. I can give my voice a little rest here. Refresh my coffee, which unfortunately is empty after all this time. Yeah. Trying to think if anything else interesting came across this summer in the flight sim world. I mean, there's announcements. There's airplanes that are being worked on. There's lots of airports coming out. You know, FS 2024 is starting to come down the pipe now. It's not here yet, but it's coming slowly but surely. I think I probably will be an early adopter of it, though. And I think I've said this before. Really, for me, it depends on the airplanes. As long as the airplanes are available, because I'm not going to have these two sims side by side, because the size of my sims has just it's gotten absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to do it right now just for fun. I'm going to count the size of my FS 2020 community and official add-on folders. And it's counting. It's counting. It's counting. But I will not be able to have both sims installed side by side. Unless they're smart enough to use the data from one sim for both sims. If they are, then okay, maybe I will be able to have the data installed side by side. But if that's not the case, I'm not going to be able to have both sims. So I need to know that the airplanes that I really enjoy work in the new sim before I install the new sim. So that's going to be kind of the big determining factors when it gets out there. When Fenix, PMDG, those are the big two for me really that have to work in both sims, because this is my FS 2020 folder. So this is my my community folder and my official folder, and it's now up to 627 gigabytes. 627 gigabytes. That's almost 2/3 of a terabyte of data for this flight simulator. It just blows me away. I have a lot of airports in there, but it's the airplanes are also starting to take up a lot of space, and the liveries too. You know, a livery is often a gigabyte each, so it's not a whole lot in and of itself, but you start to have like 20 or 30 liveries downloaded for the 320, and then another 20 for the Fenix 321. All of a sudden, it's a lot of stuff in there. Let's do this here as well. Let me just do this really quick. Do that, and then I can do this, and I can go do this. Let's do that one. So there's a really neat program that I use, and I've been using it for years and years and years, and it's a really simple program, but it's really great. It's called WinDirStat. WinDirStat. If I can show it here. And all it does is simply you can select any hard drive you want, and it will just simply let you show you percentage-wise where your storage data is. So I do have quite a few Steam games installed on the same drive as well, but it adds up to, looks like it's finished calculating it to add to 150 gigs, and this is the only one that's continuing here. So you can see, and it's kind of nice because you can break down literally folder by folder what everything takes up. So linker community is where I put all my add-on linker folders. And it also does this nice visual as well, so you can see, you can get a visual sense. So this is my hard drive here. This is FS 2020 packages. If you do the whole thing, this is FS 2020, all of the stuff I have installed. So this is my linker community, which is mostly my airports. And each one of these blocks is a different file. So you can literally click on each one, each block, and it'll show you what the different files are. Each color is different types of files, so you can see, I don't know what RPF is. Oh, Red Dead Redemption's data files. This is Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption 2 installed on my computer. It's really neat to see this kind of in a visual, but you can really see what's taken up the space. So yeah, so the packages, if you look at the official packages, this is the official packages here, taking up 276 gigabytes just with all the add-ons and everything. yeah, add-on linker is a godsend. Absolutely. And that's why, like, everything is, most of my add-ons are in linker community. There's a few I found that were a little bit prickly that didn't like to be, mostly the airplanes I found didn't like to be in the linker folder. So I'm like, okay, I'll leave the airplanes mostly in the add-on folder. This is mostly airports. This is like 90% of this is airports and probably some of it's liveries. So here's my Fenix 320 liveries. Here's my Fenix 321 liveries. Here's my Fenix 319. Like, look at how much space each of those is taking up alone. 777 liveries. 777 liveries are not nearly as much. This is the Fenix 320 installation. And then this is, you know, this is an add-on. This is one Fenix add-on livery, not from the official pack, but these are different liveries. So you can see going through it, like how much space each one is adding up. It's not an inconsequential amount. Here's the Navigraph nav database. It's like nothing. 9.6 megabytes. It's nothing. But then you get into the community and you get into my airports. So here are all my U.S. airports. What's under utilities? I don't even know. Oh, this is FSLTL. This is my traffic models right here. And then these are the AIG traffic models. So this whole thing here, this whole chunk right here, most of this is my traffic models. Airports from Canada, airports from the US, aircraft. So I have offloaded a few of the aircraft, and I think some of them might be repeated. Airports from the EU, the Caribbean, liveries. All of my liveries for different aircraft are all in here. Like, it's just, it's really neat to get this visual picture. It's a fantastic little utility, though. WinDirStat. If you're ever interested in it, fantastic little utility. It'll even tell you, like, this. It took 122 megabytes of RAM for it to just map out exactly and remember all of my files and map it out in this nice visual way. But you can see, like, what's taking up space on my hard drive. Well, guess what? It's mostly FS2020. 76% of my hard drive is filled with FS2020 add-ons, official packages, all that stuff. And then the rest of it is mostly my Steam library with a few other games, recycling bin and other stuff in there. But most of that, I've always liked this utility because it's very easy to kind of get a feel for what is actually taking up the space. Like, you can kind of look at it percentage-wise, but it's a visual. I'm a visual person, and look at that. It's so much easier to figure it out when you see it all visually. So, but yeah, I guess that was my long story short way of saying, like, I can't have both sims installed side by side, so I'm going to need to figure out what's compatible with 2024. I probably will buy it early when it comes out, as long as all the planes I want run on it. You can't say I didn't get my money's worth out of 2020, because if you look at my Steam here, where am I here? There. If you look at my Steam folder here, or my Steam thing here, playtime. Now, mind you, this is not strictly true, because I'll often fire up the sim, and then I'll walk away to go do something while I wait for it to boot up. So, like, 10 minutes every time you boot it up. Or I'll finish a flight, I'll leave it running because I'll be flying again later, so I'll walk away, but I'll leave the sim running. So this is not totally realistic, but it's probably fair to say that 75% of this time is probably the time I've actually spent flying the simulator. So even 4,000 hours in one game, even if it cost me $160, I got my money's worth out of this. That's the argument there, is that you can't say I didn't get my money's worth out of Flight Simulator. I definitely did. So moving on to 2024 will not, it's not going to upset me. I definitely got my money's worth out of that. All right, I feel like I need to refresh my coffee here. And we are just over an hour from touchdown. We're about an hour and 15 minutes from touchdown. So I think now would be a good time to step away for a few minutes, everybody. So, yeah, I'm going to say, I'm going to give myself about 15 minutes out of the flight deck. So I'm going to be back here at about 16:27 Zulu. About 27 after. I'm gonna give myself 15 minutes away to go and eat some lunch, refill my coffee, and then we'll start getting set up for this arrival. But stick with me. If there's enough people watching when we get back, maybe we'll trigger a failure. Nothing too exciting probably for this one for the start, but yeah, I'm gonna turn the background volume down a little bit here so it doesn't get too loud when I do this. There we go. Nice. It is a pretty nice looking livery though. I gotta say. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it like that. Maybe I'll just kind of do it so it's centered there a little bit better. But yeah, I'll leave you guys for about 15-20 minutes here, and no more than 15 minutes, and then we'll come back. We'll set up for this arrival. So go get yourself some lunches, guys, and meet me back here in 15 minutes. We'll get it set up for this arrival. All right, everybody. Captain Abs is back on the stream again here, and well, it looks like the cloud deck broke up a little bit there. Looks like you see a little bit of ground there. I think we're flying somewhere over, I imagine, Virginia now. Yeah, that looks like a part of probably Chesapeake Bay down below. But let's hop into the flight deck and let's just have a quick little chat. Because while I was, nope, that's not the right one, that's the right one. Because while I was, of course, down having some lunch, I came upon some interesting stuff. So, yeah, I pulled out my phone while I was eating lunch to just have a quick little peruse, see what's going on. And one of the first notifications I get is that, funny enough, we were talking about it, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is available now for pre-order. So you can go to Steam now, or you can go to the Aerosoft store or the Microsoft store, and you can order MSFS 2024 now. It's apparently out now. There's 5 different editions depending on what you want, which is just crazy. I mean, the first one came with 3. The second one comes with 5 different editions. What are they there? Standard, Premium, Premium Deluxe, and I was just reading it. I've already misplaced it here, but it's here somewhere. But yeah, all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of launch information came out just this morning. So here we go. There are 5 editions. There's the Standard, Premium, Premium Deluxe, Aviator, and Collector's Edition. Basically, the Collector's Edition, you get a lot of physical trinkets to go with it. The Aviator's Edition, I believe you get 1 or 2 trinkets there. No, you don't get any trinkets. So the Collector's Edition is basically the Aviator's Edition with a bunch of trinkets added to it. Why am I talking about this and reading it when I could just show you guys too here? So let's do this. I had this up here. Let's go ahead and go over here and just start looking at it a little bit. We'll set up for the arrival here shortly. But yeah, let's just have a look at this. So yeah, I was on FS Elite, and of course they are big into this now. So a lot of news, but pre-order, you can see the different editions that are available. So Standard, Premium, Premium Deluxe, Aviator, and Collectors. And if you kind of work your way backwards, the Collector's Edition comes with everything in the Aviator's Edition, plus it comes with a whole bunch of physical toys here, physical props. So you get a duffel bag, you get an Antonov model, you get patches for your duffel bag, you get a retail box, an instruction sheet. I'm not even sure why you would need an instruction sheet. Yeah, I'm not sure why you would really need an instruction sheet on. Oh, it's just to put together the model. Okay, now I see it. Yeah. You get a pin, you get a luggage tag or a keychain, poster, and a letter from the development team there. So the Collector's Edition gets you all these goodies, but you have to order it directly from Microsoft or Aerosoft if you're outside of the U.S. That is, I think, $260 U.S. The Aviator Edition is $200 US. And then the other ones here, Standard Edition $70, Deluxe Edition $100, Premium and Deluxe $130. So basically for the other 4 editions, it mostly comes down to, of course, what's included with it, aircraft-wise, airport-wise. So if you purchase the Standard Edition, you get 30 new aircraft plus 40 aircraft upgraded from Flight Sim 2020 plus 150 airports are included in the standard edition. If you order the premium, it's 35 aircraft, 45 upgraded from 2020, and 155 airports, 160 if you get to premium deluxe. And then the difference with premium deluxe to aviator is basically 30 payware airplanes. So the 30, Living Legends and all those ones that that Microsoft has released directly, the Microsoft developed aircraft, all those are included in the aviator edition, which is $200 US. So to me, flying a lot of airliners, I'm not necessarily chasing a whole lot of airplanes, I'll be honest. I like them and they're kind of fun to do a couple times, but it's not something I'm going to necessarily want to outlay a whole lot of extra money for. So for me, I'm looking kind of in the premium deluxe edition range, maybe the premium edition. I have to see what actual aircraft are listed at. I think there was another link that says all aircraft featured in Microsoft. So there's another link here that'll actually show you which ones are in which edition. So let's see here what's in the standard edition. You get, of course, the Airbus A321, the A330. Let's see what you get: the Air Tractor, the Pit Special, the Bonanza, the King Air, Bell 407, the Cessna 152. So kind of all the stuff that you kind of almost came to expect from 2020. PC-12 NGX here. That's kind of neat. Slip that one in there. So we're all going to have a PC-12 we can fly around in, as well as the King Air. Hot air balloon. Of course, the Grumman Goose, the Thunderbolt. There's a lot of interesting ones here. 737 MAX 8 will be available. If you upgrade to the Deluxe Edition, then you're going to get everything, of course, in the Standard Edition Plus. You get the Albatross, the Baron 58, the 152, the 172, 404 Titan, 4-weight Sky Courier, the DA-40D. See, even that's not necessarily enough to really get me over the top. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I miss the 152 if it's not in. That's the 152's in there, so this is just the 152 Aerobat edition. And then if you go into the Premium Deluxe, which is kind of where I'm thinking I'm going to fall, probably more for the airports than anything else, but you get the 90 King Air, the King Air 90. You get the 47400 Super Tanker, Dream Lifter, Dream Liner. And again, these are ones I haven't flown too much. The Longitude is one I enjoy. I do a lot of FS economy flights in that one. The PC-24, the Pilatus Jet. Oh, that's interesting there. If you need to see all the planes in a single image, here you go. Wow, that's a lot of airplanes. And then the Aviator Edition will include all the payware airplanes for free. All the payware airplanes become included there. So yeah, it's a big collection of airplanes here. It's kind of nice to kind of look at it here, but the airplanes for me are not what make or break the sim in terms of edition. It's usually more the airport side of things that makes or breaks which edition I would purchase, because I tend to fly a certain set of airplanes. I tend to fly airliners, payware airliners, so I'm not going to probably, would I spend an extra $40 just to basically get an Aerobat, a Baron 58? No, probably not. And maybe even the standard edition will be good enough for me. Like, that's a lot of airplanes just in the standard edition alone. That is a lot. So is that enough? I don't know. The 404 Sky Courier, that might be a fun one to actually try out and see what that's like. The Dornier CL4, what is CL14 there? Yeah, you get the Herc there. No, it's not the Herc. It's not the Herc. It's the Globemaster. You get the Globemaster if you buy the Premium Deluxe Edition. That actually might be fun too, as well. And the Dream Lifter. Yeah, not really 100% sold on that. I'd like to see the list of airports too and see what the difference are between the airports, which airports are available in each version. And again, for me, I'm more about payware airports, so I don't necessarily need a lot of included stuff. Does all this swag seem like fun if you buy the collector edition? Yeah, physical stuff, physical swag seems like fun, but I have so many trinkets in my life already. I don't think I'm going to be spending the money on that. That's for sure. Yeah, but yeah, a lot of information kind of came out this morning. So really get a chance to kind of see this here. They've done side-by-side comparisons, so you can see the different airports. Procedurally generated airport. that texture looks a lot more intense, a lot more dirty. Handcrafted airports, you can see the shadows on these stones if you kind of look closely here. You can see these stones, they appear three-dimensional. It's probably an illusion, but they look three-dimensional. That looks like stones. The previous one, you can tell it's a texture with stones on it, but it's got a very flat look to it. The logs, also look at the logs too. The logs are very octagonal almost. Look at this, round, textured. Ooh. Just the differences there, quite substantial there. This is 2020 versus 2024. Like markings on the pavement and tire tracks and things like that. This looks like Los Angeles. If I didn't know better, it looks like Los Angeles. The buildings don't look a whole lot more substantial, but the texturing looks to be improved substantially here. You can see the individual concrete. It stands out a little bit more. It's a little bit more weathered. It definitely looks a little bit more weathered. The lighting also looks better too. Like to me, the lighting, maybe it's just the way they captured it, but the lighting looks a little bit too bright there, and then it starts to get a very kind of realistic shading going on here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to see what I want to see, but oh, that looks so much better. Even if, and that's one of the things too, is like default scenery populates so much of the world. If you can start to make the default scenery look a little bit nicer, the trouble is like it's all a common set of objects. So eventually you visit 3 or 4 or 5 of these airports, you see the common objects over and over again. So this looks like, what airport is this? Is this JFK? No, this is not JFK. Where is it? Maybe it is. No, it could be JFK. Yeah, no, I think this is JFK. That's looking away from Manhattan. So this is the old view. The tower's not bad, but it's a little bit rudimentary. But oh wow, like look at the shape, the shapes like that. And that's one of the things they said is that one of the big differences with this new sim is the polygon count has increased substantially. And you can see we go from like these very basic. You can see the individual chunk shapes to it looks like almost a constant curve. If you look really closely, you can kind of see the individual chunks. But yeah, the level of detail on top of this building too, like lights, air conditioners. The fence railings there on both, but it's a lot more texture. Just flipping back and forth, like there's definitely an increase in detail level between these two sims. And this is supposed to be a handcrafted airport. I think this is this JFK as well, or is this Philly? I'm not even sure anymore. But you can see that the texturing is definitely improving with each iteration here. Things are definitely looking finer and sharper. Now, what kind of a PC you'll need to run this and actually maintain these frame rates? Who knows? Is this still JFK? I think it is. I think it's another shot of JFK here. Interesting here, though, and this is interesting. Look at this. All real-world liveries, no more generic Microsoft Flight Simulator airlines. Now, real-world liveries here. That's an interesting step. That is an interesting step. Real-world liveries. More people standing around, more vehicles driving around. The pavement, this texture looks kind of uniform and blah, and then this adds definitely some details to different areas. There's things that are a little bit more worn away. The buildings, the trees look about the same. That all kind of looks about the same, but the buildings definitely look a little bit more textured here. So that's their side-by-side comparison of various things here. Yeah. Anyways, interesting. A lot of interesting stuff here. Curious to see people commenting on this. Yeah. It's a little bit yeah. And then some of the people are saying let's see some comments, let's see some night lighting and stuff like that. Yeah, like some really neat fog effects there. The vegetation definitely looks more real. So this is 2020, I think, and then this is the same scene in 2024. So, you know, look at the difference here. You know, and this has been a consistent problem in some of this procedurally generated terrain. Is, of course, the shorelines are just kind of rough. Like there's lake, but they meet somewhere. But now it's like there's an actual defined shoreline. There's some stuff along there. Like look at the level of terrain. Like there's grass everywhere. The trees are also much more appropriate to the. This is kind of like, oh, there's trees. Yeah, there's trees. Okay, there's trees. The tree species are more appropriate to the terrain. It looks more vertical too. Like this kind of looks like a texture plastered on an object. It starts to look more like a sitting object. Like it just, and yeah, I think it's still like this is not the sea change that we saw when we came to 2020, but it's still a step in the right direction. Of mud on the tires, that's obviously important when you're doing backcountry flying. Yeah, it looks like they've got a much better variety of trees available here. Is that an animal hiding in the forest there? The plane got dirty. Look at the struts too. That's the struts on the underside of the plane. It all got dirty there. She got muddy. So same scene. One sim versus the other. Like the difference. Like you can see, like they spent a lot of time making the vegetation more appropriate, more varied in terms of color, in terms of also just species. Now it's different species instead of it was all like a couple of generic species of trees. Now it's that's definitely looks. And then look at the clouds too. The clouds. I'm not noticing a huge difference. I mean, there is a difference. Sometimes it's hard to judge. You're comparing different cloud forms. Swamp is just trees sitting in water versus brown water, brown swampy looking water. But just the vegetation. Look at the difference in the vegetation. Oh, look at that, showing off our northern lights there. Yeah, right. I noticed a little trail formed through the snow here. The snow's a dynamic environment, a dynamic object that you'll actually, when you land on it, will actually leave a tire track, apparently. It definitely seems like, yeah, like just the fidelity gets kicked up a notch in a lot of scenes here. Same scene. Had that emerald blue color there. I almost wonder if that's realistic, and it could be. Some lakes do turn that color in the mountains, but and then look at, like, yeah, when you get up close to the trees, you see kind of the fading, the bad texture. Now look at the texture here. Like, oh, my PC, I may not be able to fly or buy the simulator because my PC probably will not run it. There's 2020, same scene in 2024. Like, the trees are just another whole step up here. Grand Canyon. Wow. And that doesn't look bad, but you can see, like, it's individual things. But then apparently in some places, like, they've increased the fidelity like up to 4,000 times. Like, now you can see individual crags and gullies down here. Like, I'm looking at this down here, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, there's some valleys down there, but now it's like you can see the individual rock formations. And then if you get shadowing on that too, it just I gotta watch the time here because we're gonna start down soon, and I'm not looking at what we're doing at all. Float plane flying on a beach, and yeah, the beaches were all very kind of like just blurry up close. So definitely put some vegetation on there. It starts to look a lot better. Wow, look at the texture down here. So this is the default texture in 2020. Look at this in 2024, like a pebble. Oh, these guys really took some time. Look at even the buildings on the other side here. How much more realistic they look in 2024. It's just, if you increase the number of polygons, you can do anything, and that's kind of the key, is that they're increasing the number of polygons constantly. Yeah. I'd be curious to see the system requirements for this, because I feel like my sim has my computer chokes sometimes on 2020 as it is. I'm going to turn this back up just a hair again. I'd be curious to see how this works in 2024. I feel like I'm going to need to upgrade my graphics card before I buy the sim. It looks really good, though. Like, I've got to say, like, looking at that, like, it looks impressive, visually stunning in a lot of places. And that's... The trouble is that this is my view of the world most of the time. I do this flying a lot. But maybe that'll be a good reason. Maybe I'm pretty sure that's Philly right down there. That looks like Philly. Going right over Philly. So we're getting close to Boston now. We should start setting up. But yeah, nevertheless, screenshots like that, they do get me excited. I can see the excitement behind it. I can see why the developers, they're super excited about this sim, because they took a lot of stuff. I think, because I get the feeling like when they were pushing out 2020, like there was... Their to-do list was probably miles and miles long of like, hey, what can we do? What do we want to do? And of course, with any development project, there's always a time constraint. And so there's always a question of what can we realistically get done in that time? What do we need to do? What can we realistically get done? And so I think that's part of the problem, of course, with any development project, and I'm sure MSFS was the same, is how do we find that happy medium between between trying to put out a good product, but also putting it out there, you know, within a reasonable time frame. And they were working on it for years before they released it. But yeah, it looks impressive visually. Some of the other stuff I've read about it, it's great. And then one of the big keys, I think, developmental wise, is the fact that like they're trying to reduce the installation package size. So you're going to see a lot more of your information is going to be streamed over the internet as you're flying, and that's how you can get even better data as we go, because we're not installing it on your computer. We're not downloading 700 or 800 gigabytes or a terabyte of data onto your computer to form this sim. We're downloading a base model, and then you're gonna live stream the other stuff on top, which of course will require us all to have a great internet connection, which is its own battle and its own downside sometimes. But yeah, in order to achieve the level of detail that we all probably want to see from a simulator, we have got to. That's New York right in front of us there, isn't it? Yeah. We have got to start picking up the streaming, because it's just the amount of data to recreate the entire world. I would be curious to know the stats on like how much data now that this sim, the world model of this sim, is taking up on the cloud servers versus the previous version. How much, you know, with all the extra polygons, all the extra data count, how much more data is out there on the sim, and how much more is being streamed to us. I'm curious. I'm always curious how much data. Maybe if I remember at the end of this, we'll check. But yeah, that it does look impressive. Seeing all those screenshots, it got me a little bit excited. Am I going to pre-order it? Probably not. Again, for me, I have to know what's going to be compatible with it airplane-wise before I think before I'm going to drop the money on it. And this sim is going to function fine, and Microsoft's not dropping support on this sim for any time soon. So I can easily take that wait-and-see attitude. The only thing is that early adopters will get the what is it, CL514 or whatever it is, the water bomber, where they'll get it in MSFS 2020. So if you buy 2024 on early access, you'll get the Canadair in 2020 immediately as soon as you buy early access, as soon as you buy the pre-purchase 2024. So, anyways, we are getting close to our top of descent point here. I got to start doing some work here. Pardon me. So first things first, let's get an ATIS. If I can remember where the heck I put my ATIS. Not there. Here. There it is. Yes. Actually, I guess first things first, do we have a controller in Boston? No. We got Toronto Center. We got Atlantic City Ground, JFK Ground. Okay, that doesn't help me at all. So show me what's going on in Boston today. All right. Information Victor. I was right. RNAV 4 right, departing 9. Runway 4 right, ILS out of service. Interesting. Okay, good. All right, so we'll do the RNAV. 33 rights approved for turnoff. Read back all short instructions, assign altitudes, report activity, hazardous weather, numerous cranes. It's overcast 2000. It's broken 900 overcast 2000. So it's not great in Boston still. It's still a little bit mucky. It's wet. I see that, so we're going to have to get wet numbers. So let's do wet numbers quickly, and then we'll set this whole thing up here. So that's the takeoff numbers. We don't need those anymore. Let's get landing data. So Boston, runway 4 right. We're going to go wet, which is good. It's just condition code 5. Let's apply the METAR landing weight. Let's go and look at fuel prediction here and say 69.8 plus 6.3. So that's basically 76.3. We'll call it 76.3. That's the one. 76.3, and that gives us a little extra margin on there in case we get a shortcut coming a little heavier. Low auto brake. And it's not doing the calculation. And every once in a while I find it does this. It'll just hang and it won't actually do anything. Nope, nothing. Okay. Well, then we'll do the other calculation, which is sim brief to the rescue. Oh, I don't have it on there. There it is, sim brief to the rescue. Okay. So what you're telling me, and I just realized this, is that this whole time that I was looking at these screenshots, it wasn't actually coming up for you guys. Oh, I wish someone had said something. Oh, because I have two different streaming versions. One lets you see overlay windows, one doesn't, because that one has a little bit better performance, and I was on the one that didn't show the overlay. I'm sorry, guys. I was sitting here looking at it. Why did nobody say anything? Okay, anywho. Suffice to say, I'm excited about Microsoft Flight Simulator. Yeah, I looked at all these screenshots on the screen, and nobody said anything. Okay, anywho. I was just too excited to look at it all. 4 right. Condition is wet. We populated the weather already. 75.5. Let's do 76.5 tons. Calculate that. So Boston 4 right. Flaps full. Brakes auto. VREF 5. Reverse. Yes. Actually, I'll put reverse no. I don't take the reverser credit when I do this calculation here. So without the reverser credit, so flaps full, brakes low, still gives me a factored landing distance of 81.35. The actual landing distance is 63.63. So that doesn't make any sense. Factored distance margin. Oh, actual landing distance. Oh, that's not the runway available. That's the actual landing distance. That's the factor. Landing distance is here, 88.51. Okay, so it is enough with the low. It is going to cut it a bit close. We'll have to, with the reverse, it will help as well. All right, flying pretty much right over New York there. That's New Jersey. There's Newark Airport right down there, and New York, Manhattan's just hiding underneath the clouds there. So we got to get this show on the road here. All right. I'm just going to pull up my charts on the other screen here, if I can figure out where I left them. Is this the charts here? No, that's not the charts there. I have too many browser windows open now. Where did I put the charts? Oop, not that. Sorry, guys. Was it on this one? Oh, it was on this one here. Okay. So G-pole at or below 270, which we might not be able to make now because I was sitting there looking at all these. All right, let's do it here anyways. 270 minus. Insert. All right, that's going to start our descent very shortly here now. What else have we got on here? We've also got, so, Baywall 230 and landing 4 right. Expect 250 at 11,000 at Providence. So let's go Providence. Speed constraint 250, 11,000 feet. Insert that. That'll recalculate, and that'll give me my top descent point, which is coming up momentarily here. Lauren, JFK, Newells. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at this and make sure. So I'm putting it up here on the other screen because it's just so long to load. It's hard to deal with. But let's go ahead and go plan, constraint, zoom this in, and let's have a quick look here. So let's watch this go by here. Lauren. So JFK is where we're joining here. JFK, G-pole below 270, News, Baywall at flight level 230. That's all expects, but we're going to harden them all up because it's usually what we get. Norwich out, and then Providence, again, 250 at 11,000. Oh, somehow I missed it there. 250 at 11,000. And then over to Cran. Expect landing all runways except, okay, so expect radar vectors final approach course prior to Cran. So we've got Cran there, and I see decelerate, so which means we passed our top of descent point. So I'm going to go ahead and set 11,000 here for the bottom altitude. There's thrust idle descent and alt magenta. And enter destination data. We're getting to it. We're getting to it right now. All right, and then the ILS to 4 right. We got to pull this up here. Approach. Oh, not the ILS to 4 right. Actually, what am I doing here? No, it's not the ILS to 4 right. It's the RNAV to 4 right. So I actually have to reset this, and hopefully this doesn't reset all my descent data. I was thinking about the fact I had to change this, because this will reset your descent data sometimes. Now, because of the way the Fenix works, it doesn't look like it reset anything. In the real airplane, it would have reset everything on my star. It would have reloaded the entire star, and all of my altitude restrictions would be gone when it reloaded, and I had to re-add them all. But because Fenix does not quite reload the star when it recalculates an arrival, even though it's supposed to, that didn't happen. So, for the approach here, Stop doing that. I got all these screens open on my other side here, and I'm trying to just look at just the charts here. So I've got the approach, the RNAV for 4 right, so it's Goshi above 6, max 210 knots, then it's Winnie above 4, Nabo above 3, Milt above 1700, Ursu above 700, and then right onto runway 4 right, the missed approach is headed as 3000 direct Omvaz, and on track 032 to Waxen. Omvaz to Waxen, and hold 3,000 feet. LNAV, VNAV not authorized below minus 16 or above plus 54. That's okay. Coincident. MSA 2500. All right, Poppy's the left tails of 2 lighting system, 3-degree glide slope. Yeah, okay, that's all in there. Prog page. I'm going to put BOS, so that's on the field here. Okay, we got 149 miles to go. We got yes, I'm putting in the descent data now. So the descent speeds are fine. The weather again. Where'd I put my ATIS? I got too many things open here. ATIS. So 2992, 21 degrees, 040 at 14. So 040 at 14, 2992, and I believe it's at 21 degrees. We'll look at it again here just to double check. And the LNAV VNAV minimums are 514. So this is going to be getting pretty tight for getting in there with a 800, 900 foot ceiling, especially on the RNAV here. It was 21 degrees. I did get that right. Good. Config full. And for the go around, it's 3,000 feet is the acceleration altitudes. Both engines or single engine. All right, so the performance is all in there. Thank you. Enter destination data. It's done. Fuel prediction, 2.8 extra. We got an hour and a half extra. So if we miss, we can do a second approach, try to figure out a different runway that might be better if the minimums are causing a problem with the ILS offline. But we do have an hour before we have to really consider going out to JFK. And then secondary, let's see here. Did I just slop coffee on myself? I did. Apparently I don't know how to drink. At least I didn't spill up my headset. My microphone starts shorting out. One of those days. Okay. I'm going to recopy this. I don't have any other approach right now to plan, so we're just going to go with that. And let's go ahead and go arc mode again to see where we are here. So we passed the G-pole restriction. Next is bay wall 23, which we look like we're going to make that pretty well. Boston CTAF frequency as well would be a good thing to have up now. Boston 28.8. That sounds familiar. Boston has multiple tower frequencies, so you got to make sure you got the right one. 28.8 is coming up, so we'll be ready when we get close. All right, and I think everything's all set up. So, actually, let's just have a quick look at NOTAMs, just make sure nothing's impacting the arrival here. Nope. Where's my flight plan again? Is it here? There it is. NOTAMs. So we saw the ILS-4 rights offline. That doesn't help me at all. So that's New Orleans. Scroll down to Boston. Let's see here. Alpha Bravo keel work in progress. Charlie between 4 right and 927 closed. Except 30 minutes PPR. Service markings obscured. Airport closed to non-sked. Transient GA except prior permission. 15 right, 33 left closed. So 19th September. 15 right, 33 left is closed except taxi. Great. 15 left, 33 right closed except taxi 30 minutes PPR. And 1432 closed. Man, this airport's just a disaster. So nav ILS-4 right is out of service. DME-22 left is out of service. 33 left is closed. 22 left, 4 right. So let's see, ILS-4 right, procedure NA, except for aircraft's equipped with suitable GPS, so that's fine, we're not doing the ILS-4 right. Wow. Alright, so yeah. It's going to be a final lap approach, I guess. Alright, cool. And look at that. See, this is what I'm talking about. This guy's talking on... this guy's talking on Unicom 22.8. But nobody's going to be listening on 22.8 if they're in Boston, so you're going to be on your own. And this is the only problem with the CTRAF trial, is that there's still a lot of people who are not even aware the trial exists yet. So that's a bit of a problem. Okay. Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's what we're doing today. We are, so first of all, technical status of the airplane. We just have the one pack, the one bleed failed. The other pack is handling everything just fine. And no NOTAM, the biggest NOTAM that affects us is the fact the ILS-4 right is offline, so we are stuck doing the RNAV. So what we're doing today is the Norwich, what is it here? The Norwich 7 arrival for Boston, plate 10-2 Bravo, and DME radar is required, turbulence only. Expect vectors sometime after Providence. Reading constraints are all in the box. It's all as published, and we're going to self-vector ourselves over towards probably over towards Goshi unless somebody comes online for the Boston arrival. I haven't seen any Auto-ATC messages, though. I'm a little disappointed. Boston Logan, so 12-2, RNAV GPS for runway 4 right. So it's WAS, no frequencies required. Final approach course 035. Glide slope check height at Milt 1700 and the ILS, or sorry, the LNAV VNAV DA straight in. We'll assume no tall vessels. 514. Actually, it's the same even if there are tall vessels. 514 for the LNAV VNAV DAs. We should have 514 on there. Yeah, 514's on there. Missed approaches as published or advised by ATC. Top altitude 3000. The MSA is 2500. All sectors around 4 right threshold. Glide path angle is 3 degrees. I'll have to check the coding in a second here. PAPI's on the left, ALSF2 lighting system, and we need RVR 5000 or a mile to do this approach here, unless the approach lighting system is out. Let's just have a quick look here at the approach coding, and it looks like it's coded from Nabo inbound. So we have to be Nabo inbound to Nabo before we can arm final lap mode. So the 3 degree slope is only coded from Nabo inbound. All right, let's see here. So we got, yeah, once we land in Boston, it's going to be a convenient left turn off runway 4 right. The left turns on 33 right are approved. 33 left is also available for taxi between 22 left and Lima. So this whole half is available. So we'll probably plan to exit around Yankee or 33 right and then go back to the terminal. I don't have a gate assignment yet, so let's get one real quick here. For that, I'm going to need flight aware. So I'm just reaching over to my other computer really quick. And let's just see. Let's just see if JetBlue has done any flights lately from New Orleans to Boston. This is how I usually tend to do it. Let's just look for the airline having flown the same route, either scheduled or... there's JetBlue 400. Today it was flown in a C series. No, that was yesterday's, actually. I guess it's an evening flight. Yeah, it's an evening... yeah. It should have departed already. Scheduled, so it doesn't have a landing gate. So what was yesterday's flight? Arrived at gate Charlie 10. So we're going to do gate Charlie 10 in Boston. Parking gates, there it is. We'll do that one here. So Charlie 10 is all the way over in here, so that's fine. We can taxi in there. So Charlie 10, so it'll be November right turn on Bravo to Alpha, or I should probably go Alpha to Alpha 1 here. All right. Yeah, so in terms of approach management, it's going to be a managed approach to a manual landing. It's going to be a final app approach. So once we're inbound to Milt and in descent down to, or inbound to Nabo and in descent down to 3000, which is the Nabo height, we will arm approach mode. No second autopilot today. Anti-ice, it might be on. It's pretty warm down there, but there is definitely some clouds, so we'll see about that. I've got auto brake low. We'll switch to manual braking and to increase the deceleration after landing. Max reverse, config full for landing. Autopilot come off when the runway's in sight, landing's assured. And yeah, we're going to communicate on Unicom. So 28.8's up. We'll get that in there shortly. We got to make sure we've got... what is this over here? Why do I have this blue? That's not my missed approach. My missed approach is all the way over there. So what's this blue dashes here? I'm not even sure what that is. Why that route is in there. That's weird. It's not on my flight plan at all. After Cran, it's Goshi, Winnie. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Now it went away. That's weird. That's a weird little glitch. All right, there's transition. So 2992 inches. It's the exact same altimeter as when we left New Orleans, I think. Pretty sure it was. All right. Yeah, so threats, so it's a relatively low ceiling today. Broken 900, it's not super low, but low enough. So we'll definitely have to focus on flying the airplane. And if we have to do a go around, we'll just fly the go around. We got an hour of hold fuel, so we definitely can do a go around without an issue. And talk about going to JFK or holding otherwise. We know the weather's good because we just sailed over JFK. It was fine. Beyond that, we've got one bleed. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. Shouldn't affect our performance on the go around. I can't think of too many other threats, really. Wet runway, we've got wet numbers. We've got the sufficient acceleration rate. I'm going to switch to manual brakes. Unicom, CTAF, that's about the other big threat. So we'll hopefully we'll be talking to people on Unicom. Any questions?
No questions.
All right, so let's see here. Weather is marginal. Runway's wet. APU after landing, yes. Approach type is GPS approach. Threats, weather. Auto land, no. Final sector, no. EFIS required, no. Minimum descent altitude is 514. What's the airport elevation? 13 feet in Boston? 11 feet? Something like that? 19 feet. All right. So there we go. So now she's all queued up to make all the appropriate calls. And how's the temperature looking? TAT's plus 14, so we're okay to keep the anti-ice off. We haven't had to use the anti-ice at all today. It's been a pretty nice summer overall. But we are sailing up here. One other thing I didn't mention at all, too, and I did, over the summer I did fall for this, and so I've been trying it out, and I have mixed emotions. I don't think it's necessarily worth the full value, but over the summer I also picked up ActiveSky. For MSFS, so I decided to start using ActiveSky, and the only thing that really made me get ActiveSky was the weather control feature where you can control, where you can set the weather at an airport. Because the one thing I find about Microsoft's weather system when you're trying to set your weather is that, especially what I was trying to do was I was trying to do some practice low visibility approaches, and it's really hard to set low visibility in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. You can try and set a cloud deck and bring it all the way to the ground, but then you've got to increase the density of the cloud, and it doesn't necessarily correlate to a specific visibility. You get to about a half-mile visibility, and then it just that's about the lowest you can get, which is not the lowest you can really do. You know, in the real world, you can get low visibility. You can get quarter mile, eighth of a mile, RVR 1200, 600 even approaches. So I was trying to do some simulated low visibility approaches, and I found it was really excruciating trying to program Microsoft Flight Simulator to do this. So that's one of the things I like about ActiveSky is I hesitate to play with this too much, but I'll do it anyways here. So if you go to a map and, well, okay, here's where I was doing it before, but go to Calgary and say add new custom weather area here. What you can do is you can set the METAR, or you can manually set the parameters, including you can set the visibility, surface visibility, so you can say 1/2 mile instead of trying to turn down this cloud density thing that doesn't really work. So I'm going to continue to make sure it's still on live weather, okay? But so that was really the reason why I bought ActiveSky was for better adjustments of the sim weather, because I found that I just don't like. It's not that I don't like it, but I find that the Microsoft weather menu for trying to set conditions is just at best. So now it's using ActiveSky, and it's set up all these cloud layers. But like trying to set a specific visibility down low, you know, or specific. The winds kind of work okay. Even that's a little bit awkward. But trying to set up specific cloud layers, specific wind visibilities, I found that really awkward to try and deal with. And now, why did it go all clear on me here? All right, so I'm going to switch to custom weather. I'm going to switch this back to live weather, and it should convince itself to reload everything here, because it had a reasonable cloud deck and then sort of vanished there when I started messing with this here. But that's the reason why I went with ActiveSky, is just to get the ability to get much better control of the weather when I want to do a customized, especially a low visibility scenario. And I found that it was not working. So I'm going to switch it to live weather here for a second, and then I'm going to turn off live weather and switch it back to the ActiveSky preset here, because I find it's, and then of course now because the winds are jumping all over the place, it's getting all bumpy, 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 but there we go. That's more like what it should look like. We should have a pretty solid cloud deck as we head out east here. Nope. Yes. No. Maybe. The only trouble. This is the only trouble with ActiveSky. It's not a problem with ActiveSky most of the time. It's only a problem when you're switching modes. When you first load it up, if you're halfway through the sim, when you first try to load it, if you give it control before you take off, all the transitions are very, very smooth. You don't get any rough transitions like that. And in fact, the one advantage I've also found with using ActiveSky, besides of course the weather being a little bit more useful, is the fact that I don't get any more weather jumps like we used to. So every once in a while, Microsoft's cloud live weather would suddenly forget what it was doing, and the weather would, you'd fly out of the weather area, and all of a sudden the wind would veer to calm, and you get this overspeed. And then a minute later, it like reloads. It's like, oh yeah, actually the winds are not calm here. They're actually 100 knots, and then boom, you get another overspeed because it goes the other direction.
1,000 to go.
Roger. I found with ActiveSky that's gone away completely. It's always loading, and if it hasn't loaded anything recently, it just keeps going with what it's got, but it doesn't. You don't get these jarring sudden changes, and that's one advantage I found. Now this looks like what it should look like here in Boston. It says overcast at 2,000, broken at 900. Rest idle. Here's the deceleration for Providence. All right, we're just a little over 40 miles, so I'm going to get a little closer to the approach path here just after Providence, and then we'll start talking to CTAF here. Here comes a level off, but yeah. Nice tip for ActiveSky. They really improved ActiveSky after a few updates. It was too bad because they got some initial bad press on initial release, but came through after the updates. I won't fly without it, and always trusted Hi-Fi after. See, and that's the thing. Like, I loved ActiveSky in the P3D era. I really did. I thought it was a great piece of software. It was hands down one of the best add-ons, and especially the cloud art too. Just made the sim look so much nicer when you mix the two together. It was wonderful, and just the live weather was great. The fact that you could control it if you wanted to, but the live weather, it was a great feed. It was always seemed to be fairly precise and accurate. Speed Alt Star. Yeah, I always liked ActiveSky. When I came over to MSFS, of course, ActiveSky was not released for what, like, was probably about 2 years afterwards. And I got used to using the live weather on MSFS, and it's good. It's not great. It's good. It does the job. It's fine. It's there in the sim. It's on when you already start the sim, so it's it's less overhead and everything like that. But yeah. That was my biggest pet peeve with it was those sudden jumps where you'd suddenly lose your weather data, and your wind would just jump like crazy. You go, you'd lose 50 knots or gain 50 knots, and the airplane suddenly hits severe turbulence because of the wind shift all of a sudden. There was that, and like I said, the other thing was just the lack of ability to control the visibility on the ground. So if I want to do an ILS down to 200.5 minimums, I want to do that. I want to go down to 200.5, and I can't do that with MSFS. It's just sort of like, oh, set the cloud density to maximum. Well, cloud, like, even if you say set the cloud density to maximum, at least tell me what the equivalent visibility is. Read out the equivalent visibility to me. All right, I'm going to go 6,000 feet set, thrust idle, open descent, alt blue, and I'm going to go ahead and go direct to Goshi. And hopefully that puts me on a nice path here. It looks like we're on a nice path. So speed, descent, alt blue. There we go. MSFS weather can be a bit overemphasized, dramatic for effect. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that they do go for that over dramatizing the weather a little bit. I think you might be onto something there. Yeah, the other thing that I find that frustrating, and ActiveSky doesn't necessarily do this any better than MSFS, and that something that really needs to change and needs to happen is storms are not well modeled in either sim, and it's tough. I get that it's tough because it's a complicated environment to model a thunderstorm, but thunderstorms are a huge part of aviation in terms of, well, they're there, so we have to not go there, we have to go over here. But like just seeing how the storms are developing, a line of storms, can I get through here, can I go through there? Like, it's a huge amount of work when you're en route in the summer. So I really would like to see an improvement in thunderstorm dynamics, and also the ability to display it on the weather radar. So I can use the weather radar realistically to make a choice about, no, I don't want to go that way, I have to go this way to go around. I want to make a realistic deviation because of the weather radar. And that's something like flat stratus cloud decks like this, the sim looks great. It really does. It looks really good. But thunderstorms, I've never felt like any of them looked really great. ActiveSky in the P3D era probably did one of the best renditions, and it was not great, but it was good. But I feel like ActiveSky probably has that capability with their weather programming, with their knowledge, with their skills. You know, they could have they could monitor the real-time weather radar and interpolate that into a series of storms that they can then broadcast onto their users. I think there's ways that this could be done. I think, you know, I hate to say we're giving up too easily, but I think we're giving up a little bit too easily. A little breakout here. Approach checklist. In-range checklist. 2992 set. 2992 set.
2992 set. Seatbelt.
On.
Minimum.
514 feet set.
All brake.
Low. Armed.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
Approach checklist completed.
Alright, perfect. So she's all happy. I'm all happy. Temperature outside still plus 22 on the TAT, so we do not need the anti-ice, even though we're going to go into cloud here in a minute. Everything's looking good. There's a good chance we could end up doing a go-around here. 514-foot minimums on a 900-foot ceiling. I mean, if that's all correct and the sim is playing it correctly, then we should see the runway at the appropriate time. But you know, I don't have full faith in the sim. Now let's just hit refresh here and see if there's a new one out here. Whiskey. Overcast at 800 feet, and we're going down to 514 feet. Oh, this is going to be tight. We may have to go back to JFK. Still the RNF4 right. I don't see any other changes in there. I should be on the Unicom now. Definitely on the Unicom. Speed, descent, nav, and there's 6,000. I'm going to go ahead and set 3,000. There's Alt Magenta. Boston Logan traffic. JetBlue 400 is on a 25-mile final for runway 4 right RNAV. Flight deck captain speaking.
The cabin is now secure for landing.
Thank you. Alright, enter destination data. We have entered it. We do have the destination data. Alright. I'm not going to quite go flaps 1 yet. We're just leveling off here and get the speed back. Oh, we do have a 210 knots. So flaps 1, speed checked. Flaps 1, I missed that. Flight control, speed brake still out. Thank you, plane. So there's seatbelts, ignition, landing light. No change in status. Remove status. Remove status. Alright. Descent all blue. That is probably one of the biggest things that I find is still missing from this simulator. In terms of if you want to have a realistic experience of flying an airliner, is dodging thunderstorms. Most of the time when there's thunderstorms on the real world weather radar map, there's very little in the sim. We did do one approach a couple of streams ago where we did land in Orlando under the thunderstorm. So it does occasionally happen because thunderstorms were actually in the METAR directly over the field at that time. So it did model those, but like I find like in the en route phase, you almost never run into a thunderstorm. And that's definitely not the way it is in the real world. So that's one of the few things that I'm missing, and I really hope that somebody finds a way to fix it soon. And it's not easy. Like thunderstorms come in all different shapes and sizes. They're dynamic. They're constantly changing. So I get it. Like the amount of data that you need to process a thunderstorm is intense. Absolutely. But I feel like ActiveSky especially, they could take that information off the weather radar, off the real world weather radar, take a feed from that, and process it to create a map of where thunderstorms are in the sim, and then broadcast that map to everybody, and everybody's sim loads those thunderstorms. You know, size and location, and maybe shape or something like that.
1012, clear the active 4 right through the terminal. Boston traffic.
But yeah, we're less than 30 miles to touchdown, so I should be able to select my gate now, Charlie 10, while I have a moment here. Nope, not there. Thank you, Boston. Charlie 10. JetBlue. Done. Alright. go ahead and go. All right, so we're inbound to Nabo. We're in descent to 3,000, so I can arm approach mode. So there's speed and final app. I'll take flaps 2. And with final app, Mr. Approach altitude 3,000 feet is set. Roger, 3,000. All right, so we got flaps 2.
1,000 to go.
Thank you. It's just going to go right through it anyways, because now we're on final app. Now it's going to be interesting. All right, TAT's still good. TAT's still good. 21 degrees. It's quite warm in Boston, so we didn't actually need the anti-ISOs. I think we might need it just if it was a little cold up here, but it's definitely not. But this is the thing, too, with the 321 is that you often have to deploy flaps early. Like that speed restriction, and I kind of dropped the ball on that a little bit, but that 210 speed restriction at 6,000, I needed flaps 1 to hit 210. My green dot speed is still, what is it here? My green dot speed is still 224. So in order to hit, you know, flaps, in order to hit speed 210 at that point, I need to drop flaps 1 early. Like you sometimes will drop flaps 1 in a 321 at 9 or 10,000 feet just to allow you to start to slow down to meet speed restrictions on a star. And that's just the way it is. Like you need this. It's a heavy airplane. It's still 75 tons. We're still only 2 tons under the max landing weight here. All right, I might just select speed 170 and just let it go a little bit faster here for a few minutes. So while we continue inbound. Boston local traffic, JetBlue 400, just crossing Nabo, 10-mile final, runway 4 right, RNAV. I'm sorry, I totally missed what she said there. So yeah, this is one thing with the 321, more than the 320, more than the 319. Don't be afraid of the speed brakes. You'll need them. You're going to need them sooner or later. And don't be afraid to configure early, because you will need to. The airplane just, in order to get a lower speed, you have to go flaps 1 early. Oh, look at that. We're already getting kind of misty ground contact out there. Oh, we'll actually be fine on this. I was a bit worried I might have to do a go-around and actually have to divert to JFK. I was beginning to think that might actually happen. My thrust levers are within reach for when I need to hit reverse here. All right, let's go gear down, landing check. Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 2.
Cabin crew be seated for landing. Speed check. Flaps 2.
See, and I keep on setting the flaps myself because I'm so used to not having the FO here. All right, you got some. It's misty, but we got some ground contact there. We got the runway in sight, so it's actually not looking so bad. Flaps 3.
Speed check. Flaps 3.
And even now, look at our VAP here. Like our VAP is 146 today. It's a pretty fast VAP. All right, there goes Milt. Flaps full.
Speed check. Flaps full.
Landing check. Landing checklist.
ECAM memo.
Landing, no blue.
Landing checklist completed.
I think because my flaps were at 2, I brushed my finger against them and it must have set off the axis. So I just moved it to full as well. Alright, not so bad out here. I was a little bit worried. Definitely higher than broken at 800. This is 1,100 feet still. If it's broken at 800. What does ActiveSky say? Present conditions.
1,000.
10 miles. Forecast 2,000. Broke at 900. Yeah, I think it's got an old one on here. Alright, anywho. Looks like everything's stable. We've done the checklist. Boston traffic, JetBlue 400. 2 miles final, runway 4 right. Alright, she's looking good, so I'm going to go ahead and go autopilot off.
Above. 100 above.
Check.
500.
Minimums.
Continue.
Checked.
100. 50, 40, 20, retard.
Spoilers.
Manual
Airstream,
brakes.
decel. $70 knots.
All right. Used a little more runway than I expected, but that's okay. I don't think I've ever landed this long on 4 right in Boston before. Boston local traffic, JetBlue 400 clear of runway 4 right, crossing runway 4 left, taxiing to the apron. Alright, just going to pull this up. Probably the easiest thing is just to go around the end here. I just had to watch her do it to make sure I move mine. Alright, crossing runway 4 right, clear on the left and the right. Alright, and here we are. That was actually a pretty nice landing. And that's the thing. The 321, I love landing the 321. I find it's a nice airplane, it settles nicely. It hits the ground when you expect it to. I find it's a very nice airplane to land. And it has enough inertia too that when you chop the power, it doesn't really start slowing down. It doesn't drop really quickly. It's got a lot of inertia to it. So it takes some time to bleed that inertia off. And if you're not ready for it, it can get you in trouble. But I like it. I like the 321. I think it's the best airplane in the 320 family. I'm looking forward to the XLRs as well. Those will change the game a little bit for the 321. She's definitely moving a little faster now. Without even trying, she's at least maintaining some forward thrust here. Alright, so Charlie 10, we got to go back down here across the river and across the runway again and go. But she's done the after landing stuff. I'll just check and make sure. After landing checklist.
Radar and predictive wind shear system.
Off.
After landing checklist completed.
Thank you, Hannah. I'll pick a new one for next time. I think this might have been the same one I used last time, but I can't remember. It's been a while since we did anything, so we got to cross 2 more runways to get to the ramp here. So Boston local traffic, JetBlue 400 is crossing runway 15 left. This is the shorty runway. 15 left, 33 right. This is for like Cape Air and stuff. This has the distinction of being the shortest runway at any major airport in the U.S. It's like 2,400 feet, I think, is all it is, or something to that effect. 2557. So it is the shortest runway at any major airport in the U.S. And it's basically there so that Cape Air has somewhere to land and get out of the way of everybody else that's coming in. Yeah, it's not something anybody else is going to land. You couldn't even land a dash on that. You could land a dash on that, but the numbers are so tight that you'd have to nail it. When you start adding the, what am I trying to say? When you start adding the safety margins that are required for commercial operations, you couldn't even land dash 8 on that. Boston Logan traffic, JetBlue 400 crossing runway 15 right. All right, 15 right. We'll say clear to cross. See, now that we've burned off like 10 tons of fuel, she's got a little more get up and go to her. She definitely wants to keep moving now, but when she was 83 tons, it took a bit of effort to get it moving on the ground. And I find that there are still issues. It's starting to feel better. I wonder if this last update did anything to the ground friction model, because it's feeling better. it's not feeling great, but it's feeling better. The 320, I have to say, like after taxing the 321 around a little bit in the sim, the 320 feels really good. It accelerates enough off the bat. It keeps its inertia going. That I think they've tuned the 320 really well, but I don't think the 321 is quite tuned as well as it should be. But hopefully with time it will improve, and I have no doubt that they're working on improvements to it all the time. I believe Fenix is definitely constantly working on improvements. So Charlie 10's down this alley in the corner. We should hopefully see some ramp guys when we come around the corner. Look at that. It does look wet here though. We do see some puddles there reflecting some stuff as you go by. So keep in mind, like that nose wheel is underneath, oh, for crying out loud, the cabin door. So like, yeah, you're going to go way past it if you're steering to stay on that center line. I'm not sure why it keeps flashing there. I think the track IR is losing track of me here a little bit. Okay, so I see Charlie 10 should be down here in the corner. Let's just have a quick look so I know which one it is. Look for the people anyways. Charlie 10 should be just to the right of this jutting out piece in the corner. So yeah, alright, that looks good. Alright, somebody just spawned in there. Alright, so do I see the marshal? I think I see the marshal, so I'm going to go ahead and get the taxi lights off. And weather radar soft. Accumulator's good.
Hawaiian 90 Heavy, 10-mile final runway, 33 left on the ILS.
Anti-ice is off, and APU's available. I do see the marshaller there. This says Charlie 10, looking good. 321, again, especially if you're doing like it's a very short line into the gate. Pass the line, and then swing over. So you put hopefully the rear wheels will straddle the line. Definitely need to oversteer. It's not so bad if it's a long line into the gate, but if it's a short line into the gate, you need to kind of oversteer. And I need a little bit of gas just to keep it going here. And that, it's not bad. That actually, that lined up pretty well. But you definitely need to be thinking about that when you're parking at the gate. If it's a long lead-in line, then it's not so bad. But if it's a short lead-in line, you definitely need to go past and then oversteer back in just to make sure that the mains are straddling the gate line. All right, parking brake. Where's my parking brake? There it is. Alright, so APU's running. Oops. Shut down one engine. Wait for the power transfer. Then shut down the second engine. And she's going to do a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have to do much. I'm basically just watching to make sure that these engines do cycle down. They do. Beacon off. Indicates the ground crew that they can now approach the airplane. That should get the bridge moving. That gets everything moving. Boom, bada boom, bada bing. Parking checklist. Oops. Parking checklist.
Parking brake or chocks?
Set. Set. Set and checked.
Engines.
Off.
Wing lights.
Off.
Fuel pumps.
Off.
Parking checklist completed.
Alright, I'll pause, or I'll mute her, and welcome everybody to... Looks like the door is open. You guys can go ahead and get off. Apparently it was an empty plane now. Look, an empty plane all the way here. Oh, here come the passengers. All of a sudden they materialize out of nowhere. That's okay. It's all good fun. But yeah, there we go, guys. We are here. Welcome to Boston. I'm going to just turn this down before I go step outside to look at the airplane again.
Boston traffic, Hawaiian 90 Heavy, landing 33 left.
There we go. Just because there is this airplane parked right next to us here, so that's going to set some. Yeah, it looks like it's another 321. Another guy flying a 321 around this network, but that's okay. Feel free to fly the 321. Must be some wind, because look at that rudder already cocked over as soon as the hydraulic system depressurized. But there we go, guys. We have made it to Boston Logan Airport. As beautiful as it is here, and this is a pretty good model overall. I'll be curious to see how much 2024 improves some of these payware models. I'll be curious to see what the developers want to do with it too. If they'll want to have what am I trying to say? Like another crack at their scenery to try and improve it to match the new sim, because this new sim I think is going to start to set the bar pretty high. But anyways, that is our flight for today. Let me log us off here. Flight. We are done. Submit. Hopefully we got a pretty good score on that one. Thinking about it. I'm happy we landed. I was getting a little bit worried that we might have to do a go around, so thank you guys for watching and sticking with me. I haven't had to do that yet on stream where we've had to divert. I don't think, not for weather. I don't think I've done that yet on stream, but it would be a very interesting process to do. JFK is just far enough away that you have just enough time to probably get everything done that you need to do, because it is a lot of stuff. So there we go. 44.92. My average rating is still 96.53. I'm still a first officer, working my way up to 5,000 points for senior first officer, and I have $2,300 in my bank account, so I'm getting there. I'm not exactly rich yet, but I'm getting enough money. I got to buy that 777 type rating at some point, which I think is $4,000, so it's going to be a lot more flights to do that. But yeah, regardless, how did that one go? I haven't done a flight in a while, so I'm curious to see if I scored pretty well. I feel like I scored pretty well on that one. Yeah, 100% score. That's how we do it. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. It's almost like I have a secret weapon. The fact that I do this for a living means I could do it well on stream. What did it mark down for an arrival? I'm just curious, because like I felt like that was a really good landing. Yeah, 143 for the landing. Landing G-force 1.13. I thought that was a really nice landing overall. Not to toot my own horn, because I do definitely do some bad ones from time to time, but that one worked out really nicely. Yeah, that's basically it for today. So stick with me, guys. Hopefully next week, and there's not a guarantee, because it'll depend on how much time I have available and whether I get my pool done relatively quickly, or if I find some problem and run into some difficulties, then maybe it won't go quickly. But the next one is Boston to Denver. Oh my god, that's 4 hours and something. I feel like something interesting is going to happen on the way to Denver, and we won't make it to Denver, just to maintain my sanity by keeping this. What am I trying to say here? By keeping the flight maybe a little bit shorter. So we'll see. But anyways, that's it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. It's nice to kind of be back in the saddle doing this again. I really do like these flights. They're a lot of fun. It's a little bit of work to get them done, and it's a good long commitment to my day. But I do like them so much, and I'm happy to share with you guys. So I'm glad you guys enjoy it too. I'm glad you guys get something out of this, because I really love to share the my firsthand knowledge and insights. And it's great just to talk about some of this stuff too. Talk about the upcoming sim and what's coming up and what's new and exciting in the sim world. So yeah, it's really nice to get together and talk with you guys about that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned. Hopefully live stream next week, and hopefully some ATC on the weekend. I'll probably be online, in all honesty. I'll probably be online sometime Friday afternoon or evening. So keep an eye out for me. I haven't decided where. Probably Toronto, because I haven't done Toronto for a little bit, so I probably need to do some more Toronto hours. Keep my hours up, but yeah, if you're around tomorrow evening, I'll see you around Toronto. If not, I will catch you somewhere out there on the VATSIM network or one of my live streams. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you guys all out there real soon.